Welcome to the Northwest Sports Fanatics YouTube channel. I am your host, Orion. I got a great show for you here today between the Seattle Mariners and the Athletics. First pitch is going to be here in just a couple minutes, so let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get into the starting lineups. Happy Monday and happy Memorial Day to everyone. On the left, the best center fielder in the game, it's J-Rod Julio Rodriguez. And on the right, the Athletics' very own Lawrence Butler. Now let's get into the starting lineups here first for the visiting Seattle Mariners. Leading off for the Mariners at shortstop, J.P. Crawford. Batting second, playing center field, it's J-Rod Julio Rodriguez. Batting third, playing first base, it's Nails, Josh Naylor. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, right fielder, Randy Arozarena. Batting fifth, playing right field, Luke Raley. Batting sixth, playing second base, Cole Young. Batting seventh, DHing for Seattle, the Italian stallion, Dominic Canzone. Batting eighth, catching today for Seattle, Johnny Pareda. And batting ninth, playing third base off a 4-hit game, 3 doubles and a single, 4 for 4. It's our boy, Colt Emerson. And on the mound to start off the game for the Mariners with a 1-5 record, ERA of 6.41. It is La Piedra Luis Castillo. We will see Bryce Miller, but we don't know when. And now let's get into the starting lineup here quickly for the home Athletics. Leading off for the Athletics in right field, Carlos Cortez. Batting second, playing first base, Nick Kurtz. Batting third, catching today for the A's, Shea Langeliers. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, DHing for the A's, Brent Rooker. Batting fifth, playing left field, Tyler Soderstrom. Batting sixth, playing center field, Henry Bolte. Batting seventh, playing second base, Jeff McNeil. Batting eighth, playing second base, Zach Geloff. And batting ninth, playing shortstop for the Athletics, Dairul Hernandez. And on the mound for the Athletics with a 5-1 record, ERA of 3.31, it is Aaron Savali. Tridents up. Let's go, M's. We're going to be shooting for 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. All right, baby, let's go after it. AZ in the building, what's good? Daniel in the building, what's good? JK in the building, what's good? Let's get it. First pitch to JP Crawford there from Savali, high and inside. Takes a strike looking, sinker, 88 miles an hour, 0-1 count. Don't really know why JP is still leading off. I'd rather have Cole Young or Colt Emerson, but it is what it is. We definitely need Donnie and Cal Raleigh back ASAP. 0-1 pitch, high and away. Cutter, 86 miles an hour, missing by Savali. 1 ball and 1 strike to JP Crawford. 1-1 pitch, high and away. Cutter missing again. 85 miles an hour there by Savali. 2 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and no outs. Top of the first inning here early between the Mariners and the Athletics. 2-1 pitch from Savali. In there for a strike. Curveball fooling JP. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Savali to Crawford. Last pitch was 75 miles an hour, painting the corner beautifully. 2-2 pitch from Savali. JP gets a hold of that one into left field, fading foul behind the plate. 4-seam fastball, 89 miles an hour there by Savali. 2 balls and 2 strikes to JP Crawford. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. 2-2 pitch. High and away. Good eye here by JP. And we know his defense has been bad lately. And he's not the greatest hitter. He is third on the team in home runs. Batting average is closer to 200 rather than 300. But one thing that JP is good at most of the time is being patient in the box. 3-2 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Down goes JP, and that is one away. Would really like to see Dan Wilson shift Cole Young as the leadoff hitter until Donnie comes back. But I guess we're going to have JP leading off until otherwise. Down goes Crawford. Next up is Julio Rodriguez. Let's go, J-Rod. First pitch to Julio Rodriguez, in there for a strike looking. Cutter, 85 miles an hour by Savali. 0-1 count. And shout out to my boy Odin's son for the highest single donation that we've ever received on the channel yesterday. 1,500. Unbelievable. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Julio Rodriguez. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss right down the middle there by Julio. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Julio Rodriguez. Previous record for a single dono was 1,300 by Shepard Williams about 3-4 years ago. And finally, we got someone to break that. And shout out to my boy Odin's son, the original OG, the first person to ever donate to this channel years and years and years ago. Definitely shout out to you, the real MVP. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Julio on a nasty cutter there by Savali. And that is 2 up and 2 down. And Savali has been fantastic for the Athletics this year. 5-1 record, ERA of 3.31. So this could be a little challenging early on. Next up in the 3-hole, first baseman, it's Nails, Josh Naylor. Let's go, Nails. Hawks in the building, what's good? Dave in the building, what's good? First pitch in there to Naylor with the cutter for a strike, 0-1 count. Shout out to Herb Valentine, WW2 hero, I see you. 0-1 pitch, line drive up the middle, gets past the infield. That's what I'm talking about. And Nails with 2 outs gets a beautiful infield single. There we go. Jack in the building, what's good? Hawks in the building, Dave in the building, Chris in the building. Let's get it. Nice job there by Josh Naylor. And again, it's not like JP's the greatest hitter, and again, we know Cole, sometimes goes 0 for 4, 0 for 5. He's a young player, but I think we would have a better chance of getting, the inning started off, on a good foot and on a good note with Cole leading off and just swapping them. Have JP hit 6th and have Cole lead off. And you can still have Emerson at the, 9-hole, so you can still have a 9-1-2 late if needed. And Randy with a little dribbler up the middle, somehow, some way, that actually gets through, and another base knock. And that is wild. You wouldn't expect that to happen, in front of Jeff McNeil or Daryl Hernandez. And again, we'll take that. Nice job there by Naylor. And on that first pitch, Randy Arosarena right up the middle. And again, we haven't been very lucky with infield singles that aren't hit that hard. Most of the time they get gobbled up. But today, definitely getting off to a good start. Next up, in the 5-hole, right fielder, Luke Raley. And again, that nice rally that we had in the 9th was, something that we had to be able to, hope that it would carry over a little Uncle Mo and some momentum coming into today. We know how good the Athletics are. 1 game above 500, so not that much better than us, but still better than us at the moment. And again, as long as we play them like we played the Rangers or the Astros or the Yankees, instead of playing down to the competition like the Royals, we'll be just fine. 1-0 pitch popped up in the left field, and that is out number 3. We leave 2 stranded, but I like the start. Getting a hit from Naylor, getting a hit from Randy. And again, it's just a matter of time before we're able to get back-to-back hits, or we're being, able to get into an RBI situation, or hopefully a few home runs on Savali and the bullpen. All right, let's go to the bottom of the first inning and see who's up next here for the Athletics. And this is definitely going to be the team that's going to challenge us the most besides the Rangers, for winning the division and getting a wild card spot. It should be the A's, the Mariners, and the Rangers, unless by a miracle the Angels and Astros turn it around, but I don't think they will. And again, it should be a 3-team race for 2 spots. But again, I feel very confident that we can get one of those. Rayleigh flies out to left, and let's see who's up next here for the A's. Next up for the Athletics in the bottom of the first inning, right fielder, Carlos Cortez, and he had a good series against the Mariners the first time around. Batting second, first baseman stud, Nick Kurtz, and arguably one of the best catchers, if not the best catcher this year in MLB, catcher Shea Langeliers. And to start off the game for the Mariners, 1-5 record, ERA of 6.41, Luis Castillo, but we will get Bryce Miller at some point, but that'll be up to only one person, this man right here. 50th anniversary for the Seattle Mariners, and obviously we know Riz is retiring after this season. We dedicate every stream this season to our boy, the icon, the legend, Rick Riz. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. Shout out to my boy, Brooks Beats, with the best beats on YouTube. Angry in the building. What's good? Passenger in the building. What's good? Megan in the building. What's good? Odin in the building. What's good? Thank you so much for your generosity. I appreciate you. And Megan gets us started with a $20 holla. Appreciate you. Yeah, it has been a little bit of a minute. I know you've been doing some pin shopping and, doing your collectibles lately. And obviously there, Bob Gale, 75th birthday. Appreciate you. Megan gets us at 2080 to go. Appreciate you. Hope that the collecting has been joyful for you from one collector to another, regardless on what it is. And again, it seems like the collection is getting a little bit bigger. Bottom of the first inning, 0-0 here early between the Mariners and the Athletics. First pitch in there to Cortez for a strike. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Castillo to Cortez. And it doesn't really make any sense to have Castillo pitch first, but I guess maybe they're thinking that if he fucks up early, then Miller can clean it up later, instead of having Miller be amazing, for 4 or 5 innings and Castillo shit the bed, and then we end up losing the game. So maybe that's kind of the mindset, but again, if Castillo pitches first, we can't be down 4 to 8 runs. We have to hope that he gives up 3 runs or less, even though his ERA is almost 7. So 2-1 pitch popped up, and it just goes into the dugout and bounces into the dirt there and foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Cortez. But again, I would rather have Miller start, and then if Castillo, ends up pitching no more than 2 innings, if you go more than 2, that's when the meltdown happens. The maximum you can go with Castillo is 3, but I just don't trust him, going 3 innings. You really put yourself in a position to be let down if you let him go 3-4 innings. But if you do a half inning or 2, again, that's the perfect amount for Castillo without really having meltdowns, in my opinion. Pitch is high and away. 4-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour, high and away there by Castillo. Full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Carlos Cortez. 3-2 pitch, high and away, and Castillo starts off his first batter with a walk. And again, I think they just don't want to hurt his feelings, but they should just say, you're going to be a pen guy. They shouldn't have him start the rest of the year. What do they really need? They needed him to go, 0-10 and then finally give up, but again, let's hope and pray that we can get some double plays and some good defense and we don't get down by 1 billion early on. Next up is Nick Kurtz. First pitch in there to Nick Kurtz with the 4-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, right down the middle, 0-1 count. Ooh, you got some horror memorabilia there, I see, Odin. Take a peek at that here once we get in between innings. 0-1 pitch, high and away. Castillo, very wild here early on. And again, they just need to, talk man to man and just say, you know what, Louise, we brought you in 2022 from the Reds, and you were one of the reasons that we ended up making the playoffs for the first time in 20 plus years. But the bottom line is, Father Time, is undefeated, and you're just not playing up to your ability. So we need to move you into the pen full time. We have too much talent. Little dribbler up the middle. Give me a double play, baby. And no throw there from J.P. Crawford. And I guess, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We get the fielder's choice, but the way that JP has been throwing the ball the first lately, it hasn't been good. And I guess him not throwing it is better than throwing it over Naylor's head for an error, but we'll see. And that is 1 away. Next up for the Athletics, arguably the best catcher in the game right now, Shea Langeliers. 12 home runs, batting .305 with 27 ribbies, and I think that's what we assume that Cal would be doing, coming into this season. First pitch fouled off there by Langeliers. 0-1 count. Four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, right down the middle. One pitch almost hits Langeliers in the knee, and I think we've seen enough. I mean, it's only the first inning, but again, he just doesn't have it, and again, he's a liability, whether it's his starting role or if it ends up being a guy in the pen, but he's just not good. Hell, I think, and I'm being very honest right now, and I've been watching a lot of Cade Anderson's starts. Castillo obviously once in a while can get a few Ks here and there and get a few outs. Big swing and a miss there by Langeliers, low and away. But I honestly think if we called up Cade Anderson, that he would be pitching better than Castillo right now, even though he's extremely young and he's extremely raw. He's not even in AAA yet. But based on what I've seen, the small sample, as well as in spring training, I think Cade could do better than Castillo. And that's not really saying a whole lot, but for a guy in the farm that's going to eventually be our number 5 starter, like Brian Wu was a few years ago. And then they might have to rotate between like Miller, and Cade Anderson, or Hancock and Cade Anderson, when we first bring them up, because we're going to have probably 6 guys for 5 spots and whatnot after we get rid of Castillo. But I truly think that Cade would be better. And that shows you where we're at with this team. 2-2 pitch, and Langeliers pops up. And nice play there by Cole Young, as reliable as ever. And that is 2 away. Nice job there by Cole Young. And everything will come together when we can get Young at second and Emerson at shortstop. And then JP just ends up being a bench player, just like Luis Castillo. I mean, these are the 2 worst players, on the team at the moment, as far as guys that get to play pretty regularly. And again, sometimes you got to make a statement, and you don't want to hurt feelings. But again, this is, a business, and, you have to have your best players play, period. Next up is Brent Rooker. First pitch to Rooker, big swing and a miss. Beautiful slider there from La Piedra. 0-1 count. Velasquez in the building. What's good? It's not bandwagon fans giving up on Castillo. He's just not good, and that might be from someone like yourself that doesn't watch every game, every pitch, every inning like we have, and again, there's different levels to fandom, with Fanatics and fair weather fans, bandwagon fans only watching when the Mariners are good. But there has nothing that has been done this season for him to be starting still. He's terrible. And he didn't even get his win starting. It was obviously later in the game. He's terrible. And again, he hasn't really been that good, for quite some time. Normally, he floats around 500 with an ERA, going from the high 3s, 4s, and 5s normally, So, again, 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and Castillo ends up having a decent first inning besides walking the first batter. But it's definitely nothing to do with bandwagon Mariner fans, hardcore fans. Everyone's fed up. We don't have a good record. We've definitely been struggling. Castillo has definitely been one of the reasons why we've lost, more games than we should have. But it's not only him. JP Crawford with his errors, Julio with his errors early on, Mooney being a fucking terrible closer, injuries to fucking Cal, and, Brandon Donovan and many, many others. So, there's a combination of things. But again, you might be an inexperienced fan that hasn't been watching for that long. But again, most people that are true Mariner fans, it's time to give up, and have him only pitch out of the pen. Again, it's like, what do you want? You want him to go 0-10 before you give up? You want his ERA to get to 10 before you give up? Anytime you have a starter or a closer with an ERA above 6, it's not good. Mooney can turn it around, but I don't really think Castillo will. Father Time is undefeated, and Castillo's done, and I honestly think Cade could do better right now. And, obviously Miller and Hancock are better than him as well. And we obviously know Kirby had a rough last start, and Wu, normally pretty electric, had a rough one as well. But, we only have so many spots, and, I would think that having Bryce Miller pitch the whole game is going to give us a better chance to win, rather than Castillo taking away a few of his innings. So you might be a Luis Castillo guy, but he clearly is not good this year. Normally, he's at least at the bare minimum 500, and he's not even that, So, again, and his ERA normally is not above 5. So, again, sometimes you just got to cut your losses, So I don't think it has anything to do with being a bandwagon hardcore fan. It's just being, aware of what's going on with this team. All day in the building, what's good? But again, depending on how many games you watch and, if you understand baseball, there's certain things that have definitely happened to make it more challenging. And again, you got to weed out some of the weak links. And the weak links are JP Crawford and Luis Castillo, And again, if it was me, I would switch Matt Brash to closer, for Mooney until he's right mentally and physically. But I know Dan won't do that either. But we have the luxury of having at least 2 guys that can do it. Actually 3 with Ferrer, but I don't trust him either. So, it's kind of tough when you got 1 guy out of 10 you can trust in the pen, including your closer and Matt Brash, and that's it, on a game in, game out basis. First pitch in there to Cole Young for a strike. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, high and away. Cutter 86 miles an hour there by Savali. 1 ball and 1 strike to Cole Young. And also it's about making adjustments. Having JP lead off is not a good idea. It's not the same JP Crawford from a few years ago, and again, Donnie would be the best person to have, as a leadoff. But if he's injured, you've already gone through the experiment of JP, Julio last year and Randy last year. But Cole Young, kind of looks and feels like a guy that could play pretty much anywhere 1 through 9. And I think it would give us a better chance to start off a game hot with Young leading off. Until Donnie comes back and just flip-flopping him and Crawford and have JP hit 6th, but again, when we start off fast, usually we, get dubs, but, if you end up having a leadoff hitter that doesn't really get on base, makes it a lot more tougher for Julio, Naylor, Randy, and the rest. 1-2 pitch, popped up and out of play. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Savali to Young. Tank in the building. What's good? One-two pitch. Popped up behind the plate and foul. And it has nothing to do, Wang, if Castillo's a good guy. No one gives a shit if someone's a good guy. At the end of the day, it's are you producing or not? Again, JP Crawford, great guy off the field, but if you're making fucking errors all the time to first base, throwing wide, that's supposed to be your strong suit. And then you went to management and said, hey, I'll play third if you want Colt Emerson to play shortstop immediately. Hell, if you can't even throw from shortstop to first, how the hell are you going to throw from third to first? You're not going to, So again, it's like, it has nothing to do with who they are as people. At the end of the day, if we want to try to get to a World Series, having JP and Castillo playing regularly is not ideal. 2-2 pitch popped up, and Geloff is there, and down goes Cole Young with a pop-up, and that is 1 away. And again, we've loved our contributions that we've gotten out of Castillo and JP, but realistically, both guys shouldn't be on the team next year. If we want to be able to have the best team possible, we got to cut away the weak links. And there's a lot of good things that they've done on the field in the past, but this year, both players not very good. Next up is the Italian stallion, Dominic Canzone. And again, I've been watching this team since the mid-'80s. I'm a guy that watches every pitch, every game, beginning to end. And I'm, and everyone's, due to their opinion, depending on, when you're watching and how much you're watching. But I think it's pretty clear for most Mariner fans, Castillo and JP are just not it. Pitches low and away with a curveball, 72 miles an hour, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking inside, 1 ball and 1 strike to Dominic Canzone. 1-1 pitch, high and away, 2 balls and 1 strike from Savali to Canzone. And we have a deep team. We have a lot of players, right? So, little dribbler up the middle, throw to first, down goes Canzone. But again, there's a lot of things that Dan Wilson doesn't do to make it harder for this team. Not swapping out Brash for Mooney, while he's struggling. Not moving Castillo to the pen fully. Moving JP, out of the lineup. And if you're not going to have him lead off, make sure you switch him for someone that can maybe give us a better chance, like Colt Emerson or Cole Young as a leadoff. Just a number of things, based on who plays and who doesn't. Having Luke Raley play every day, instead of having him split like he's like some kind of scrub. He has the most home runs on the team, and you're treating him, like some just jobber. It's just ridiculous. So again, with all the injuries and poor play that we've had, Dan Wilson is also a reason why, we haven't been able to get a little bit better, and again, we're a few games below 500, but I still think that we'll be able to turn it around. First pitch takes a strike looking inside to Johnny Pareda, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, another strike in there to Pareda, takes a strike looking down the middle. 0-2 pitch, line drive to third, and caught with a rope by Geloff, and that's going to be 3 up and 3 down. Savali getting some good defense behind him, and that is out number 3. But again, there's a number of things that, if you're a manager in baseball, there's not a lot of good ones. There's maybe 5 out of 30 teams, and it's a revolving door of guys getting hired and fired. But again, it's like we already went through this type of shit with Scott Service. Do we really want to go through it again? And obviously Dan is more liked because he was a player and caught for Randy Johnson. He was one of our guys, so of course, we're going to have that, normal love, for a player coach. But if you actually watch on a game in, game out basis, he coaches, looking long-term and sometimes not focusing at the game at hand and actually managing the game. You are a manager. You just don't throw the lineup out there and hope they figure it out. And that's kind of the way that he manages. And the same thing goes with Scott Service. He'll just throw them out there and then just hope they figure it out, and then if we fuck up and lose, it's not his fault, but we know that's not true. Next up for the Athletics, as we go to the bottom of the second inning, in the 5-hole, left fielder Tyler Soderstrom. Batting second in the 6-hole, center fielder Henry Bolte. And batting third, the former New York Met in the 7-hole, second baseman Jeff McNeil. Right hand's up. Let's go M's. Ooh, got some cool horror stuff. That's awesome. I just saw your items that you ended up getting, Odin. Pretty cool. Odin in the building. Love in the building. All day in the building. Tom in the building. What's good? I did say, AZ, that Kelenic got deactivated, but I want to say that I'm surprised, but I'm really not. But I was kind of rooting for him. And obviously things get magnified even more, when you have a losing record, right? When we have expectations of being one of the, top 3 or 4 teams in the American League with the Yankees, Guardians, and Rays, and it just hasn't worked out for us. But again, there's only been 3 teams that have really played well: Guardians, Rays, and Yankees, and then 12 other teams, 11 other than us, that have been kind of bootios, right? But I do believe that the Rangers, Athletics, and Mariners will take that next step and try to catch up to the Guardians, Yankees, and Rays, but it may not be until we get Cal and Brandon Donovan back. 1-0 pitch. In there for a strike. ABS held up. 1 ball and 1 strike to Tyler Soderstrom. 1-1 pitch. Low and away. Change up missing there by Castillo. 2 balls and 1 strike. With nobody on and no outs. Bottom of the second inning. 0-0 here early between the Mariners and the Athletics. 2-1 pitch, popped up with the 4-seam fastball. Shallow left field. Randy is there. Nice to see a little bit of hustle out of Randy there in left, and that is 1 away. Down goes Tyler Soderstrom. And again, if the A's are good and they're not at the bottom of the division, maybe we can have a different perception of them. When we play the Royals and the Angels and the A's, we usually play down to the competition, but this is the first time that the A's are at the top of the division. So if we treat them, like we're playing the Astros when they were normally good, or the Yankees or something of that nature, obviously we have to be able to, play up to the competition. And again, they got a better record than us, not by much, but they are 27-26. They are a game above 500, only 10-12 at home though. So definitely a little bit of wiggle room as long as we can get the bats to come alive. And as long as Castillo doesn't give fucking up 4 to 8 runs, in these 3 to 5 innings that he'll probably pitch. And then we'll have Bryce Miller come in. 1-1 pitch, little dribbler up the middle. Young to Naylor, automatic as it gets. And that is 2 up and 2 down. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Bolte grounds out there to Young. 2 up, and 2 up and 2 down. Next up is Jeff McNeil. First pitch in there with the changeup there by Castillo missing. 1-0 count. Bottom of the second inning, 0-0 here early between the Mariners and the Athletics. 1-0 pitch, fouled up and out of play there by Jeff McNeil, the former Met. 1 ball and 1 strike with nobody on and 2 outs. Bottom of the second inning, 0-0 Mariners and Athletics. But again, there's been so many things that have gone wrong for us. It's like more than we ever anticipated coming into the year, especially being one of the last 3 teams left with the Blue Jays and the Dodgers last season. Expectations were really, really high, maybe too high. And again, we had never anticipated injuries or poor play, JP and Julio on defense and Castillo and Mooney shitting the bed early, and having Donnie and Cal being injured and Cal not playing well. It's just like a lot of things that were very unexpected. And McNeil with a little dribbler that goes up the middle, little hopper up to Julio, and a nice base knock there by Jeff McNeil. But, with everything that's gone wrong and gone sideways, we still can win the division. We still have the most talented team, in the American League West. It's just, can we actually, get to 5 runs, 7 to 10 hits more times than not, and then the weak links, can we weed them out and then get better players in there, to help us win? And, I obviously feel if we can get Colt Emerson at shortstop and, if that means JP has to be a bench player, then that's what we need to do. But we're not going to do that until Donnie comes back where he can play third. First pitch there to Geloff, low and away with that sinker, almost gets away from Pareda. 95 miles an hour, 1-0 count. One-0 pitch in there for a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike from Castillo to Geloff. And plus, we went 20 years with no hope of making the playoffs. And, I still watched every game, even with no hope. Not a lot of other people probably, went that, deep, unless you're a true fanatic. Obviously some of those L's were really hard to watch, especially when you're getting blasted by fucking 5 to 10 runs or more, so... we'll see how it goes. But again, ever since we ended up getting Cal and Julio, in 2022, I really felt, that was like the turning point. And then from 2022 to 2042 in this, 20-year, stretch that we're going to have, you would assume that we'll make the playoffs probably 13 out of 20 years, or something, close to that. And then hopefully we'll have 1 or 2, World Series appearances. Hopefully we may not win the first time that we go, especially if we play the Dodgers, but with the talent that this team has and not really too many teams that are that much of a threat. Like, we know the Yankees are always going to be the Yankees. That's always going to be the top dog going into the season every year, but then with the Rays and the Guardians, it may not be every year. It could be another team. Like last year, it was the Tigers, kind of taking over the Guardians, but the Guardians are usually pretty solid. Rays are usually good every couple years, and this is the year that they're really breaking out with the Yankees and the Guardians. But again, there's definitely a little wiggle room, for the A's and the Rangers and the Mariners once they get healthy and once we get after the All-Star break and the weather starts to warm up. We play our best ball in the second half, and that shouldn't be any different this year. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. Down goes Geloff. And that is a nice start here for Luis Castillo. Started off with a walk, which made me nervous. We know how that typically goes with Luis Castillo, but has been able to settle down and settle in. And again, we're normally used to Luis giving up, 4 to 8 runs almost immediately, or he'll be good for maybe 2 or 3 innings. And then all of a sudden that 4 inning that fourth inning, where he might give up 4 runs in that single inning may happen. And then all of a sudden, if we're not on the board, it definitely doesn't feel good. Then you're having to chip away. And, again, it's like, certain things, with certain pitchers, you anticipate things going wrong. But then look at lately, Kirby and Wu, we thought we were going to have them be lights out, and they got roughed up. So this team is really hard to predict. You never really know how good the pitching is going to be. You never really know how good the bullpen is going to be. And you really don't know if we're going to fucking hit today or tomorrow or ever, But again, once we get Donnie and Cal back, I definitely feel we'll get a little bit better. End of the second inning, 0-0, Mariners and Athletics. See who's up next here as we go to the top of the third inning. Fresh off his 4-for-4 day, 3 doubles and a single. Not many 20-year-olds can do that besides Ken Griffey Jr. It's our guy, Colt Emerson. Batting second, 0-for-1 with a K, shortstop J.P. Crawford. And batting third, 0-for-1 with a K, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Right hand's up. Let's go, Ems. Aaron Savali, 5-1 record with an ERA of 3.31 coming into the matchup. Most total bases first 7 MLB games of 20 years or younger. Ken Griffey Jr. and Colt Emerson are tied at 12. Then Mark Newfield at 10, Jose Lopez and Chris Snelling at 7. So anytime you can get your name mixed in with Ken Griffey Jr., whether it's Julio Rodriguez, Colt Emerson, or anybody else, you know that you're something special. And Colt definitely is. I feel that once he really starts to get the rhythm, he'll be a better hitter than Cole, even though Cole at times will be, pretty good, but I think Colt is a better pure hitter, and both are amazing at defense. And especially when they start playing next to each other, shortstop for Emerson and second base for Young, you're really going to see how great they are together. And eventually in a couple years, they may be the best at their positions, defensively, and hopefully they can pick up the offensive side of it as well. 1-1 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 1 strike to Colt Emerson. Two-one pitch, high and away. Count now is 3 balls and 1 strike from Savali to Emerson. Yeah, and again, it's like, when you got backup catchers, though, you can't expect, too much out of Garver or Savali. I mean, we ended up having Kisner, but they ended up letting him go. And again, no one anticipated, Cal getting injured, and then traded Harry Ford, for a Jose Ferrer, but Ford is in AAA, so it's not like he's, doing anything either. So, but honestly, Garver is probably the best option behind Cal, just based off his experience with the team. And it's not about just hitting as a catcher. You have to be able to be a leader, call a game, make sure you don't get too many balls that go past you, and every once in a blue moon, Garver will get a home run or, an RBI. But I mean, you could say the same thing for guys like JP. They're not really doing it all the time. We got a lot of guys that are underachieving. And again, if you get anything out of guys like Rob Refsnyder, Mitch Garver, J.P. Crawford, Connor Joe when we had them, that's a win, and again, even if it's just 1 hit and a walk, you can't expect guys like that, to go 3 for 4. It's just not going to happen. I mean, hell, even some of our best guys, don't go 3 for 4. We don't got Ichiros, on this team going 5 for 5 or 4 for 5 or 3 for 5 often. It's not really what we have in the cards, besides maybe Donnie, if he's healthy. He might be a guy that could do it more times than not, but, we're not really built that way. First pitch to JP, low and away, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, splitter, low and at the knees, 2 balls and no strikes to JP Crawford. And I feel like a lot of people that are critical, they're not really fans, The people that are just shit talking, they're not true hardcore fans. Some are, but again, some, just like to talk shit. Some lost their parlay, and they're mad that they lost money. Some are fair weather, occasional fans, watching when the Mariners were good last year, but now when the Mariners are bad, it's easy to pile on and be negative, but we got to be as positive as possible. And again, there has been legitimate things that have happened, for us to kind of, have the record that we have, but that doesn't mean that we can dig ourselves out of the hole. And also we're in the American League, 12 teams are bad, out of 15. There's only 3 good teams out of 15. So again, even though things are, bad, could be worse. We could be the Astros. We could be like last place in the American League West. We're not, we're still in range of, getting to first place, at some point, even though we haven't really been able to get to 500 or above, but that doesn't mean that we won't. 3-2 pitch, popped up and out of play. Count now is full, 3 balls and 2 strikes from Savali to Crawford, and it's easy to be negative, just like in life when things are going wrong, but again, you can call a spade a spade. We'll call guys out, that are playing bad, like Mooney and Castillo and JP and whatnot. But, again, at the end of the day, for most of us as hardcore fanatics, we want to be able to be positive and see this team be successful, considering that we have a really good roster. And again, we're much better than we were even 5-10 years ago. 3-2 pitch to JP. Crawford pops it up with frustration, throws that bat on the ground, and that is 1 away. I mean, remember, even prior to getting Julio and Cal, if you go back prior to 2022, we would maybe get 10 Ks with a lot of our pitchers. But if you remember, we were striking out like 15, 20 times a game. Sometimes we were scoring just 1 run. Yeah, and that's kind of what's going on right now at the moment. But again, you have to remember, with no Donnie and Cal in the lineup, even though Cal was on a slump, that doesn't mean that he's going to be on a slump forever. And it's not like Cal was at 0 home runs. He was at 7. So obviously started slow, got hurt, went to the IL. And obviously that slump was really bad. We can't, deny that. But, hopefully he'll be, healthy the rest of the way, because we're really going to need a healthy Cal and a healthy Donnie if we're going to try to get above 500. First pitch, big swing and a miss there from Julio. 0-1 count. Throw to first. And Emerson is safe. Yeah, but the front office has actually done a pretty good job the last couple years. Normally the moniker was like 54%, based on our winning percentage and the effort from the front office. But again, at the trade deadline, the last couple years, they actually have spent money, to bring guys in. And, again, it just didn't work out yesterday, but we went further than I think a lot of us anticipated. And again, you just got to be able to figure out who's going to be a good fit. And, Seattle's ballpark is one of the hardest to hit at, so if you're on another team or from the National League and you come to Seattle, that doesn't mean that you're going to be good. Again, it takes a very special player to play in Seattle. And a little dribbler there into the outfield. Go, baby, go. Emerson hustling the third, and a nice base knock there by Julio Rodriguez. And that's one positive thing that we've had this season, right? Julio Rodriguez has finally figured it out, how to play good in the first half of the season. It may have taken him 5 fucking years to figure out how to be patient, in the box and to, get more, hitters counts rather than pitchers counts when you're down 0-2 and striking out left and right. But this is definitely one of the bright spots, even though his defense maybe took a step back in the first 15 games, overrunning 4 or 5 balls for extended base, hits and, RBIs, but he has cleaned it up, since then. Nice single there by Julio Rodriguez. Let's see if we can get an RBI here by Naylor, and we can end up getting a 1-0 lead, 2-0 lead, or best case scenario, 3-run jack for a 3-0 lead. Let's go Nails. Top of the third inning, runners on the corners at first and third with 1 out. Aaron Savali on the mound. Josh Naylor in the box. Throw to first, and Julio is safe. Yeah, and again, they're not going to get rid of, DePoto, and the ownership. Obviously, if anyone's going to go, it's going to be the manager first. Obviously, they like the people that they have, even though, we hope we can get somebody a little bit better, but... But the front office, they can't control injuries, or poor play, and again, I was very critical of the front office as well, over the years, since I've been a fan of this team since the mid 80s, but I think they've done a pretty good job trying to construct a team that could be World Series worthy the last couple years. Now we just have to see, can they, continue to do that? And I do believe that they will do a better job, and, we will be buyers at the deadline every year, especially with the talent that we have on this team. 1 ball and 1 strike to Josh Naylor. 1-1 pitch, a little dribbler up the middle, could be a double play. Throw to first, and high throw, safe, yes! And the runner comes home. Thank God we get a throw like J.P. Crawford on the other end, a little high, and Josh Naylor does his job. Gets to first, ends up being safe. The runner ends up coming home. Colt Emerson, 1-0 Mariners. Let's go! Definitely would like to see Emerson, in the 9 or the 1, and, obviously swap JP for Cole Young as a leadoff. I think either one, would be a great option for a leadoff hitter until Donnie is healthy. And then when Donnie is healthy, you can have him at the 1, Julio at the 2, and then you got to figure out where you want to put Cal, in the lineup. Maybe not in the 3, right away, or the 2. You might want to have him hit a little bit lower in the lineup until he starts getting going, and then you can adjust. First pitch to Randy Arozarena, hits it deep into the gap. Oh, he mistimed it, goes to the wall. Oh, go. Run, Naylor, run. Run, Naylor, run. Run, Josh. And Randy goes back to second, and Josh comes home. Here we go. Randy Arozarena with a big hit. And again, things have definitely not gone our way, but if we treat this team, as the Yankees, like we are, and we know we're up for a challenge, we're playing up to the challenge. Great job there by Randy Arozarena. Josh Naylor scampering home, and we know Naylor is not the fastest guy, kind of a big boy, and he ends up getting in. Nice double there by Randy Arozarena. 2-0 Seattle. Let's go. Let's go, baby. That's what I'm talking about. And again, especially with Castillo on the mound, we want to make sure we're fucking scoring some goddamn runs and getting some hits and some RBIs, right? Savali's been great, and again, it's just a matter of time, before Castillo pitches average, not maybe great, but at least like not putting us in a fucking hole, of 4 to 8 runs. And then we do have Bryce Miller. So, and we have more confidence in Miller than we do Castillo, but so far so good from the offense. They finally showed up. And now we have a 2-0 lead with a runner at second, Randy. Next up is Luke Raley. First pitch to Raley, hard hit ball, deep right field. Back, gone! Luke Raley, 2-run jack, 4-0 Mariners. Let's fucking go! Woo! Let's go. See, this is what I'm talking about. You just got to stay positive. There we go. Luke Raley getting the job done. And if you're going to hang one right over the plate, and just like that, Aaron Savali, right? Coming into the game, very confident, 5-1 record, ERA of 3.31. Doesn't matter. We get the job done. 4-0 Seattle. And it's been a minute where we've had an inning like this, or even been able to get to goddamn 4 within the first 3 innings. I can't even remember the last time that we had 4 runs by the 3rd inning. It's been a minute. Nice job. Next up is Cole Young. First pitch fouled off. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch ends up being fair. Run, Cole, run. Run, Cole, run. And Cole is in there, feet first and safe. Man, we are on a night. This is one of the best rallies that we've been able to, go on. And it's not often where we go back to back to back to back, let alone, 3 hits in a row, but again, momentum goes both ways, right? Uncle Mo works out when things are going great, but it also, when it rains, it pours. And we've been on that end, of the spectrum way too much. And now it feels like karma and everything else is starting to kind of flow our way. Nice double there by Cole Young. Let's see if we can keep this 2-out rally going. Next up is the Italian Stallion, Dominic Canzone. Hard hit ball, deep right field. Back. Gone! Dominic Canzone. Let's go. 2-run jack. 6-0 Mariners. Let's go. This might be the best inning that we've had all year. Unbelievable. We had so many guys that were due for, big home runs and big RBIs. Canzone homers to right center, 397 feet. And again, if you're going to go right down the middle on us, we will make you pay. Let's fucking go. 6-0 Seattle. Next up in the 8-hole, Johnny Pareda. This is definitely one of the most exciting innings that we've had all season. Bash with the tenor. Let's go. Let's go. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. First pitch fouled off there by Johnny Pareda, 0-1 count. It's like one exciting play after another, after another. And again, we're not used to that, right? When we have plays happen, it's usually like, a hit or two, and then, we left him stranded. We had some kind of fuck up. And Pareda with a little dribbler into right field. Wow. When Pareda is even getting a hit, things are going all Tridents up. Wow. Here we go. And that's the type of momentum that we need. You just got to be able to believe. And again, with no Donnie and no Cal in the lineup, and with poor, J.P. Crawford and Luis Castillo and Andres Munoz, it hasn't been easy. And on top of that, having to deal with Dan Wilson. But today, top of the third inning here in Sacramento, we're giving the Athletics the fucking business. And again, that's something that's, man, we've definitely desperately needed this. Next up is Colt Emerson. He's already at Emerson for the second time, and that's good when you can go through the order. Unbelievable inning. One of the most exciting innings all year, if not the most exciting. Naylor grounds into a fielder's choice. Emerson scores 1-0 Seattle. Arosarena with a double to right. Naylor scored 2-0 Mariners. Rayleigh with a 2-run jack with Randy on board, 4-0. Canzone with a 2-run jack with Young on board, 6-0. And we're not fucking done yet. Unbelievable. If the Mariners could just play like this, not every day, but a little bit more frequently, how great would that be? And again, we got to pour it on. No mercy. Again, if we get to 10 to 15 runs, so be it. But again, we have to remember a lot of times when we go off, right? When we get 10, 15 runs, sometimes that next game, we get 0, or like 1. So hopefully that's not the case, but unbelievable inning here. The most exciting inning I think we've had all year. First pitch to Emerson is low and away, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, high and away, 2 balls and no strikes from Savali to Emerson. And again, he was kind of pitching high and away and trying to jam the hitters early, but then just for whatever reason in this inning, he was kind of just testing the middle of the plate, thinking that we weren't going to swing or we weren't going to get a hold of it. And again, nice to be able to see some of our guys, get some big RBIs and home runs. So many of those guys were so fucking overdue. 2-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. 2 balls and 1 strike to Colt Emerson. 2-1 pitch, fouled off into left field. 2 balls and 2 strikes with a runner at first and 2 outs. Top of the third inning, 6-0 Mariners. Someone pinch me. Let's go. And then we're doing it against a really good pitcher as well. All right, appreciate you, Megan, for your support. Keep collecting. Two-two pitch from Savali. And Emerson with a line drive into left, and that is finally out number 3. Soderstrom's hat goes off his head as he runs into the infield. And again, 6 runs, 8 hits. I mean, we have a hard time doing that sometimes in, getting to 6 in like the third game. Sometimes it might take us 2 or 3 games to get to 6 runs, let alone get 6 runs in 1 fucking inning. But again, I love it. Let's go to the bottom of the third inning. And you know what's great? It's like Castillo hasn't given up a bunch. Well, and it's not done yet, but at least through the first couple, we're not, looking at, the Athletics with 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the board. So, everything going perfectly, as good as you could have scripted, an outing against a really good team, the Athletics. Great job there for Seattle. Tridents up. Let's go M's. Next up, leadoff hitter, right fielder, Carlos Cortez. Batting second, first baseman, Nick Kurtz. And batting third, catcher Shea Langoliers, I believe. And shout out to Megan with the 20, Bash with the 10, and Odin's son ended up breaking our record yesterday on the stream. Single donation record used to be $1,300 from Shepard Williams about 3-4 years ago, and we ended up getting a $1,500 solo donation from Odin's son, our original OG on the channel, the first person that ever donated to me years and years and years ago. And again, when you end up getting support like that, you know you're doing something right. Shout out to Odin's son, the true MVP. Go to the bottom of the third inning, 6-0 Seattle. All right, okay, so Cortez was up after that. Leading off is Daryl Hernandez. First pitch takes a strike looking high and inside, 0-1 count. Sometimes I go based on, what ESPN, has on, their tickers and whatnot, where I'm waiting for Mariners TV to come back, but sometimes it's not reliable. Sometimes they are off on that. So I got to trust that they're going to be correct, but as we know, sometimes they're not. 0-1 pitch, fouled off there by Hernandez. No balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Hernandez. And this is probably the best run support Castillo's had all year. So, you don't need to, you don't need to be someone that you're not. Just try to be as clean as possible here. Popped up, and Rayleigh mistimes that ball. And Hernandez is going to end up getting a double, which should have been probably a single, but kind of an awkward bounce out there in right field. Nice base knock there by Daryl Hernandez. Next up, right fielder Carlos Cortez. And then in the 2-hole, first baseman Nick Kurtz. They don't have really a tentative date for Cal. Gabe Spire, May 26th with Spencer Packard. Teddy McGraw on the 27th. Masterboni on the 28th. Vargas on June 4th. And I know last time that they, had any type of information, I think Donnie was June 5th. And we'll see when Cal is ready. First pitch from Castillo to Cortez. Takes a strike looking low and at the knees with a slider. 0-1 count. I mean, it would be great to have Donnie and Cal back like now, but if we rush them back too soon and then they get injured again, again, we can't have that. We got to give them enough time where hopefully their bodies can heal up and they won't have any major injuries. Now, will they end up having another minor injury before the season's over? Probably, but we want to have them as healthy as possible, for a run, especially after the All-Star break. 0-2 pitch, high and away, 4-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour there by Luis Castillo. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and no outs. Bottom of the third inning, 6-0 Seattle. Very true, Rich. Sometimes in a whole series, we don't even get 6. And that might be in like 4 games even. Sometimes in 3 games, we don't get there. Sometimes not even in 4 games. Sometimes it ends up being a 0, a 1. Maybe one game we get a 2 or a 3. And, it's been tough sledding, And again, but Dan is partly responsible about that. Needing to be able to mix up the batting order, taking JP out of the leadoff spot, having Luke Rayleigh play every day. I mean, there's things that he could have done to make the team more successful. 2-2 pitch, Julio back at the wall. What a jumping grab by Julio Rodriguez. Hernandez tags up, and Hernandez ends up getting to third, safe. Nice grab there by Julio Rodriguez in the no-fly zone. Next up in the 2-hole, first baseman Nick Kurtz. And again, if we didn't have any injuries, and everyone's just like playing bad, then there's going to be more concern, to be able to be a little bit more emotional and freak out. But again, there's been a number of things that have happened that, we never anticipated. And we just got to do our best to tread water, and just try to stay as close to 500 as possible until we get our guys back. And then hopefully that'll be the, clinching determination to get us over 500 with Donnie and Cal back in the lineup. 2-0 pitch, big swing and a miss, high and inside. Kurtz was going for the moon. Luckily, he missed. 2 balls and 1 strike from Castillo to Kurtz. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. 2-1 pitch, low and at the knees. Slider 85 miles an hour. 3 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and 1 out. Bottom of the 3rd inning, 6-0 Seattle. And it didn't help that Brash and Spire got hurt, and we got a bunch of fucking AAA guys, in the bullpen. But with that being said, we're still a top 10 pitching team and a top 4 bullpen, and normally it doesn't go any lower than top 6. So even though we get angry, when guys have meltdowns in the pen, compared to the other teams in the MLB, overall, even though it doesn't feel like it to us fans watching these games, our pitching staff and our bullpen is actually quite a bit better than most teams, even though our record doesn't show it. I look at all the stat nerd websites looking at ERA, team ERA, all of those little nerd websites that go over that. And, we just need to bring some consistency. First pitch to Shea Langoliers, big swing and a miss, low and away, 0-1 count. Beautiful slider there by Luis Castillo. Shea Langoliers, definitely, one of the top catchers in the game, if not the best catcher this season. 303 average, 12 homers, 27 ribbies. And I assume that's kind of what we were hoping Cal would be doing, obviously this year, but he got hurt and went on a big slump. 0-1 pitch, low and away, slider 86 miles an hour. 1 ball and 1 strike from Castillo to Langoliers. Yeah, and I think that we will at some point win 4, 5, 6 in a row, but I don't think it's going to happen until we get Donnie and Cal back. If we have Donnie as a leadoff hitter and he's healthy, he could actually go 2 for 4, or 3 for 5 once in a while, and kind of set the tone at the top of the order, and then that'll rub off on the other guys. And then if we can get Cal hitting home runs again and not slumping, and obviously having him behind the mound instead of Garver and Pareda, it could be huge for us for sure. 1-2 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Shea Langoliers. But also, we need JP to be a better defender, and again, with, certain guys getting the call up, like Colt Emerson, it's just a matter of time before JP ends up going to the bench, especially when, you have Donnie at third. Colt will play short. There's no spot for JP. He's not good enough to be a DH. He's a 200 hitter. Big swing and a miss. Down he goes. And that is 2 up and 2 down. Down goes Langoliers, and, it's been tough for pitchers to strike him out this season. He's been a monster. Big punch out there by La Piedra. Next up, 0 for 1 with a K, DHing Brent Rooker. Absolutely, we would not want to do that. He's injury prone, and we would have to give up a lot and pay a lot, and the Mariners would not be willing to do that. Obviously when he's healthy, one of the top guys in the league, but he's injured, man. We got plenty of injuries already. We don't need to blow up the team to bring in another guy that more than likely would get injured for us too. Big swing and a miss, high and away. No balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Rooker. But just our luck, if we were to get someone like that, he would probably, tear, something, or have Tommy John, and it's just our luck that something bad would happen, We don't need him. 0-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Brent Rooker, and that is 3 up and 3 down. And again, nice to see Castillo, with a 2-hitter, playing well after walking the first batter of the game with Pareda behind the plate, our 3rd string catcher, and then ending up getting the best offensive inning, of the season, or one of the best offensive innings with 6 runs there in the top of the 3rd. Let's go to the top of the 4th inning and see if we can add on a couple more. Next up, 0 for 2 with a K, shortstop J.P. Crawford. Batting second, 1 for 2 with a K, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. And batting third, 1 for 2 with a run and an RBI, first baseman Josh Naylor. And you kind of had a feeling that good things were going to happen. I didn't expect 6 in a single inning, but getting Naylor and Randy, with hits early, it was a good sign, even though they got stranded. But, it kind of felt like, maybe good things could happen today. And we definitely took advantage, of, Savali, maybe his worst, outing this year. 5-1 record, ERA of 3.31. He hasn't got rocked like this all year. And I'm happy that the Mariners were able to do it here tonight, especially how things have gone lately in a few of the series. We definitely need it. End of the third inning, 6-0 Seattle. Rez is loving it. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. We're at 30 on the Dono train, 70 to go. We've gained 6 subs since the beginning of the broadcast. Shout out to the 6 subs that we've acquired. 14 more subs to get to 24,100. End of the third inning, 6-0 Mariners. And let's see where we're at on the likes, how close we are to 100. We're at 78. Good start. $78 likes, 22 to 100. First pitch to JP, back, and gone! JP Crawford with a home run. Are you kidding me? 7-0 Seattle. The thing is, though, is that you have to understand with Skubal, yeah, he's a great pitcher, but how much money would we have to pay? Mariners are not willing to pay, for someone like that. They're not, and then if we somehow were to get him, what would we have to blow up our team, to be able to restructure, obviously that money, and knowing, our luck, he would get hurt. So we don't need him, Nice job there by JP Crawford. Your defense is very suspect, but a nice home run there by J.P. Crawford. 7-0 Seattle. Everything going correct and everything going right now. First pitch into Julio, takes a strike, looking high and inside, 0-1 count. And we're very home run dependent, as everyone knows. In a lot of games we don't get any, but once we get that first one, sometimes that turns into another one, and sometimes even a third one. And great job there, JP Crawford. 7-0 M's. Yeah, but when have the Mariners ever paid big money for a player like that? Yeah, it's like, maybe when we ended up getting Robinson Cano, but it's not like they spend a lot of money often. It's very, very rare, when they end up spending big money on one single player. 2-1 pitch. Julio pops up. We're not the Yankees or the Dodgers. And Kurtz is there, and that is 1 up and 1 down. Julio flies out. Next up is Nails, Josh Naylor. I mean, if we had a track record, of paying, a lot of money for certain guys, like if we were the Dodgers or the Yankees, yeah, I would say let's try to get them, but we're not those teams. So, you have to look at our past history, with this organization. So, first pitch from Savali to Naylor, takes a strike looking, four-seam fastball, 88 miles an hour, 0-1 count. And plus, we already have plenty of pitchers, It's not like we're, in a position where we only have one good pitcher out of 5, where we desperately would need a Skubal. I mean, we have a lot of talent. We have one of the best, pitching, groups in baseball already. 0-1 pitch popped up. That's in foul territory. And down goes Naylor. Geloff with the pop-up. 2 up and 2 down after the J.P. Crawford solo dinger. And again, you can be a top 3 pitcher, for a few years, but that doesn't mean you're going to be there, forever, especially after an injury. We'll have to kind of see what he looks like afterwards. And, we know he's got the talent, and that's kind of the, thing. The Mariner organization is like the one team that kind of has his number. Whenever he plays against us, we usually rock him, but he's, normally very, very good. but even like look at Skeens, again, when he first came up, wow, looking how great he was, but, kind of came down to earth a little bit to start this year, still a pretty good pitcher and whatnot. But, again, being a starting pitcher in this league and being great at it and being elite, for a number of years in a row is not easy. And Randy with a little dribbler there, toe tap on the bag, and that is 3 up and 3 down. Let's go to the bottom of the 4th inning, 7-0 Seattle. Yeah, but you're not the one running the team, So again, we can come up with all of these suggestions and, this and that. But again, you have to understand the organization itself. Let's go to the bottom of the 4th, 7-0 Seattle. Next up for the A's in the 5-hole, left fielder, 0 for 1, Tyler Soderstrom. Batting second, 0 for 1, center fielder in the 6-hole, Henry Bolte. And batting third, 1 for 1 in the 7-hole, second baseman, former Met, Jeff McNeil. Trident's up, let's go M's. Nice job there by J.P. Crawford. Your defense might be some shit, but at least the bat came alive today, and we're definitely feeding off the momentum. 7 runs, 9 hits, home runs by J.P. Crawford, Dominic Canzone, and Luke Raley, and we may not be done just yet. I love it. Plus, we already have a phenom lefty that's going to probably start in the pen and eventually be our, number 5 pitcher sooner than later, like Brian Wu was when we first brought him up, and Cade Anderson. So, for me, I'd rather have Cade, because I like being able to develop guys that we draft, guys that we get, rather than, picking up someone from another team and hoping that it works out and hoping that, they don't get injured. It's just like in any sport, you have a little bit more love and appreciation for guys that you draft that come up in your own system rather than coming from another team. Little dribbler up the middle, JP, sidearm throw to Naylor, misses it again. What is going on with JP? Holy hell. Can JP even throw to first base? Unreal. What is going on? What is going on with JP throwing to Naylor? I mean, this sidearm type of throw that JP has, I have never seen, normally known as a great defender. Like, he has just fallen off a cliff defensively. Soderstrom, safe at first, throwing error by J.P. Crawford. And again, at some point, I know he just hit the home run, but again, we need to move Colt Emerson, there immediately. We can't have errors almost every day lately now by J.P. Crawford, and again, the home runs are nice. They're far and few between, but we definitely need Colt, playing at shortstop. But then it does, leave a hole for third base, but I don't want JP there either. 0-1 pitch in there for a strike with the slider, 85 miles an hour. No balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Bolte. And a lot of these throws are like routine, normal throws that JP could normally make in his sleep, with his eyes closed. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just a sidearm approach, but I have never seen an elite defender fall off the cliff defensively like J.P. Crawford has this season. 0-2 pitch, low and away. Sinker, 96 miles an hour there by La Piedra. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Henry Bolte. 1-2 pitch, high and away. 4-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Henry Bolte. Nice job there by Castillo today, and great job by the offense. I mean, obviously, just the defense, is the issue. 2-2 pitch, and that is strike 3, looking beautiful. Down goes Bolte, and another punch out there by Luis Castillo. Nice job. Ready to bring the electricity, La Piedra. Next up is Jeff McNeil. No, Miller is not on the mound yet. We got Castillo on the mound first, and then Miller will be coming in after. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the last inning for Castillo or if they're going to let him go until he, gives up a run and whatnot. But definitely one of the better, offense and pitcher outings that we've had in a long, long time, considering this is our worst, starter, even though they're platooning him, with Miller today. 0-1 pitch popped up, and Emerson is there, and that is 2 up and 2 down. Mike in the building, what's good? Next up in the 8-hole, second baseman Zach Geloff, 0 for 1 with a K. First pitch in there to Geloff, in there for a strike. And again, this is a good version of Luis. He's not hitting guys. He's not walking guys. He's not giving up back-to-back hits. He's not giving up home runs. He's not getting a bunch of RBIs on him. And again, it's still... he's not done yet, but so far this has been definitely one of the best that he's had all year. But it also helps, when the offense is rolling like this as well. It gives you that extra confidence that even if you do fuck up, you still got a huge lead. Rather than the game being 0-0 and having all that pressure on his back, having a terrible record. So. O2 pitch. High and away. Four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, missing the corner. One ball and 2 strikes with a runner at first and 2 outs. Bottom of the 4th, 7-0 Seattle. We don't really know how good Spire will be when he comes back. He might end up being really shaky like he was in the WBC spring training at the beginning of the year. And we'll see what he looks like, obviously as he comes back. 1-2 pitch. Got him. There we go. La Piedra looking good. That's what I'm talking about. Strikes out looking. See you later, Zach Geloff. And this is definitely one of the better outings for offense, as well as starting pitching. Now, we have the error with JP, so that's really the only one thing that, what's going on? We normally can rely on you. What are you doing? And especially when it's just a routine play. Just a throw to first. Like, what happened? Are you injured? Is something going on mentally? Are you worried because Emerson is already called up and your job is in jeopardy? But at something, you got to get past it, because if you don't, at some point you're going to be just a bench guy and you're not good enough to DH as a hitter. So, got to figure it out, JP. But good job, though. At least, he did get an error, but at least he kind of made up for it with the solo dinger, I guess. But again, it is concerning how many errors JP is getting daily. Julio had a few early in the year within the first 10 to 12 games, but really hasn't had one in a minute. Next up for the Mariners as we go to the top of the 5th. 1 for 2 with a run and 2 RBIs with a big 2-run jack, Luke Raley. Batting second, 1 for 2 with a run, second baseman Cole Clutch Young. And batting third, 1 for 2 with a run with 2 RBIs and another 2-run jack by the Italian stallion, Dominic Canzone. Trident's up. Let's go, Ems. Top of the 5th inning, 7-0 Seattle. Mike in the building, what's good? Dave in the building, what's good? Let's go. Savali, 4 innings pitched, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, 1 walk, 73 pitches, first pitch strike, 17 for 22. But again, with his amazing record, he probably thought that he was just going to absolutely just blow everyone away. 5-1 record, ERA of 3.31, and now Perkins comes in and hopefully we'll be able to rough him up as well. First pitch from Perkins to Rayleigh is high and away, in there for a strike on the corner with a sweeper, 84 miles an hour, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch, fouled that one off into left field, out of play. Four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour there by Perkins. No balls and 2 strikes to Luke Rayleigh. Trident's up. Let's go M's. We've got 215 in the room. We need 10 more likes to get to 100. So if we can get 10 people out of the 215, we'll definitely be there. 0-2 pitch, popped up and out of play. No balls and 2 strikes from Perkins to Rayleigh. And we're at 30 on the dono train, 70 to go. Ended up breaking our solo dono record yesterday of a single solo donation of $1,500. Wild. Odin, son, you are a true MVP. And that is strike 3. Down he goes, and that is 1 away. Down goes Luke Rayleigh, and that is 1 down. Next up, 1 for 2 with a run. Second baseman Cole Clutch Young. First pitch from Perkins almost hits Young. He has to dive out of the way. 1-0 count. Four-seam fastball, 97 miles an hour there by Perkins. And, based on how things have gone, with the Mariners, sometimes I'll flip up, the photos, for the Mariners. Sometimes we'll go with, all blue or all teal or all white, or sometimes it'll just be photos that I like with, a little bit of everything, photo-wise, City Connect, whites, blues, teals, but I figured, based on how things have, been going, lately, it's kind of time for a switch up, kind of dust off that bad energy, off some of those older photos that we were using. And, it's nice to be able to see this good version of the Mariners show up here today. 2-0 pitch, big swing and a miss, cutter down the middle, 93 miles an hour there by Perkins. 2 balls and 1 strike to Cole Clutch Young. So the highest solo dono prior to Odin was from Shepard Williams, and that was like 3-4 years ago, and that was $1,300. And then we ended up getting a $1,500 single dono. So, just crazy when you can get that kind of love and support. We've hit, $100 donos, $200 donos. We've hit 500, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 times, on the channel. But we've only hit over 1,000 twice. And, anytime you can get something like that, that's huge. I haven't had a car, in a number of years. So, getting a used car could be an option. 3-2 pitch popped up, and that is caught, and that is 2 up and 2 down. Nice catch there by Jeff McNeil on Cole Young. I got a little bit of credit card debt, but not too much. There's a lot of opportunities there. NVIDIA and their stock, obviously is going to be going through the roof, and even being able to get a few shares of that, before it explodes, could be something. So, there's a number of things. Obviously I'm not going to spend anything. I'm going to definitely have to be very, I have to be very critical, on what I do with it and whatnot, but it's definitely not going to be spent right away. But there's a couple things that I've been kind of looking at: car, paying off some debt, maybe buying some stock, to see if I can, make some money and, have a good investment and whatnot. 1-0 pitch fouled off, and that's out of play. Like the last time I ended up having, something like that, I invested, in a Jordan rookie, and that was back in 2003 in LeBron's rookie year. And I ended up winning an auction on eBay when the card was worth $2,500, and I got it for $1,000 with insurance. And I was battling maybe like 50 or 60 people. Didn't think I was going to win it, but I ended up getting the winning bid. And then I ended up owning that card for 12, 13 years, and then ended up selling it to get, the microphones and the green screen and the iMac and all the stuff that you see here today, but now, if you end up, looking up prices, of where that card is at now, it's pretty wild. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Dominic Canzone, and that is 3 up and 3 down. Reflect with a 20. Appreciate you. Touchdown, Mariners. Good to see you, my guy. $20 dono from one of our OGs. Reflect in the building. Thank you so much. Let's go to the bottom of the 5th inning and see who's up next here for the Athletics. Well, they're doing the same thing that they did before, where I'm looking at the Athletics due up, and it only has 2 names, and it always has 3 for the 3 batters. So I don't know what's going on with ESPN, but I guess I should expect that. So we'll wait before I say who's up, because last time it brought up 2 names, it ended up being the wrong batting order. So I don't trust what's coming up here. So and then it looks like Miller is coming in now, so I know that's at least correct. All right, so Castillo is done, and he has his best start of the year. And let's see if we can get Bryce Miller to do the same. Appreciate you, Reflect. And now we get our boy Bryce Miller coming in to piggyback here. Next up for the Athletics in the 9-hole shortstop, Darryl Hernandez. We'll see if that's right. Batting second in the 1-hole, right fielder Carlos Cortez, who had a good outing against the Mariners the first time around. And batting third in the 2-hole, first baseman Nick Kurtz. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. First pitch for Bryce Miller. Takes a strike, looking right down the middle, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch, fouled off, out of play, behind the plate, slider 92 miles an hour. No balls and 2 strikes from Bryce Miller to Darryl Hernandez. Yeah, absolutely fantastic game. I mean, starting pitching, Castillo didn't give up 4 to 8 runs, so that's a win, right? And then we end up getting 6 runs in a single inning and then another run in the 4th, right, with a homer by J.P. Crawford. We're very home run dependent, and a lot of times we get no home runs and we lose, right? But when we end up getting 1 home run early in a game, a lot of times it leads to that 2nd home run or 3rd home run or 4th home run. And that trend has definitely stayed true today with home runs by J.P. Crawford there in the 4th inning with a solo jack. But when we went on our huge run in the 3rd, getting 6 runs, we had a big home run by Luke Raley and then Dominic Canzone. So great to be able to see those 3 guys go yard. Really the only negative thing is that J.P. Crawford had another error throwing to first base on a routine play to Josh Naylor. I don't know what's going on with him, if he's got an injury and he's just being hush-hush about it, or if it's a little bit of mental and physical. But I mean, for a guy that normally is known as a good defender, having a hard time, playing your position, even though Colt Emerson is, going to take your job. But again, if you go to management and say, hey, I can play 3rd, right, and I can try, while you can put Colt Emerson at short if you want. But if you can't even make short throws from shortstop to first, throwing from 3rd to first is even harder. So I don't think we, should put JP at 3rd base, and again, it may not necessarily affect his hitting. He's more of a 200 hitter rather than a 300 hitter, even though he's 3rd on the team in homers. But, again, we can't have liabilities at 1st, 2nd, short, and 3rd. There's a lot of ground balls, and line drives that go to those, areas. And we got to make sure we have guys that we can trust. Pitch fouled off there by Hernandez. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Darryl Hernandez. 2-2 pitch, low and away. 3-2 pitch and a little line drive up the middle there on Bryce Miller. That's not ideal. And a nice single there from Darryl Hernandez. Next up is Carlos Cortez. First pitch to Cortez. Big swing and a miss. Beautiful slider there by Bryce Miller. 0-1 count. Miller on the mound. Carlos Cortez in the box. Against Seattle, he's batting .438. If you remember, he rocked us the first time around. 1 RBI, 1 home run, but a lot of hits. And hopefully we can, shut him down, so to speak, here in this series. Bottom of the fifth, 7-0 Seattle. All day says we're at 103, 47 more to 150, 97 to 200. We got 202 in the room. 1-1 pitch. Big splitter there by Bryce. Big swing and a miss by Cortez. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Miller to Cortez. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. 1-2 pitch. Low and away. Check swing. Did he go with the knuckle curve? No, he does not. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Carlos Cortez. But it would be nice to be able to have a car, so that way I could take Paisley to the beach, the coast, and have her run around and we could go on adventures together. But again, gas is so expensive and, then you have to have insurance and everything else, but it definitely is an option. Paying off a little bit of credit card debt is another option as well. But I would like to transfer, maybe one card to another and see if I can get no interest for a year. So that way I can actually get rid of it and not have to pay every month, and then, and then maybe something like NVIDIA, obviously we know with AI and everything else with the computer chips and whatnot and everything that's going on, if you can invest and, get a few shares of a good stock before it explodes, that could end up being something that potentially could happen as well. Next up now is Nick Kurtz, runner at first with 1 out. First pitch to Kurtz. Paints that corner beautifully. 4-seam fastball high and away. 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch. Big swing and a miss. No balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Kurtz. Yeah, Brooks has been working, and anytime he'll make a lot, but again, I have to kind of go through them and see which ones I feel would work for a baseball stream, because some of them are going to be, more for just him, and for other, avenues in his work. So little line drive, double play, throw to first. JP finally gets the throw to Naylor and a big double play. Nice job there. Cole Young to JP. And again, if JP, ended up having another wild throw, man, it's like, how many errors are we going to get out of JP before he can figure it out? And I mean, it's one thing, when you're having to do a double play and then the runner is sliding into you and you have to jump and try to make the throw. And then if you get an error, so be it, but again, when it ends up being like right to you, nobody in your way, and all you got to do is just make a normal throw. And I don't know what JP is doing with this sidearm approach. It's definitely not working, instead of just throwing it traditionally. He's always had kind of a sidearm approach, but more this year than I can really remember, and it's not working. But at least he ends up getting the double play there. Nice play from Cole Young to JP Crawford to Josh Naylor. Bang, bang, bang. It's done. End of the fifth, 7-0 Seattle. Let's go to the top of the sixth and see if we can pour on a few more runs. Next up in the 8 hole, 1 for 2, catcher Johnny Pareda. And if you know Pareda's getting a hit, things are going really well. Batting second, 0 for 1 with a run and a base on ball. Went 4 for 4 yesterday. 3 doubles and a single. Nobody at 20 years old has done that besides Ken Griffey Jr. and maybe one other player they mentioned in the broadcast yesterday. But again, anytime you can get your name mentioned with Ken Griffey Jr., you're doing something really special. Shout out to Colt Emerson. And batting third, 1 for 3 with a run, RBI, and a K. Does have an error, but also has a home run, J.P. Crawford. Trident's up. Let's go, Ems. Love the ABS system. We don't complain about the umps anymore, and again, it used to be a thing where we would be complaining pretty much every inning, no matter what game was going on. So it really holds a lot of those older umps, to a certain standard. They can't hold grudges anymore and just call the game the way that they want to. And it keeps everyone honest. And again, getting the calls correct, is what it's all about, right? For your team as well as other teams, and first pitch popped up into right and caught, and that is one away. Down goes Pareda. But again, sometimes, new things, that get approached, to, the game that we love in baseball. Sometimes new rules, with shifting and other things, and obviously not having pitchers hit anymore. Some things, are going to be a little skeptical by certain fans, but I think most fans would agree that ABS has been great for baseball this season and moving forward. Probably should have had it years ago, if we're being honest. First pitch to Colt Emerson. Pops it behind the plate, foul, 0-1 count. Oh, pitch. High and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike to Colt Emerson. One pitch from Perkins to Emerson, in there for a strike with the sweeper. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Perkins to Emerson. One-two pitch. Low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Perkins to Emerson. I'm not really sure if it's going to be something that it'll be implemented everywhere, college, high school, WBC for like tournaments and whatnot. But, on certain levels, obviously, or, like even in the farm, obviously in like AAA, little dribbler, throw to first, and first base ump calls him out emphatically, but Emerson thinks maybe he's safe, and that was very close, and we are challenging. And again, for me, I don't mind the challenges because, again, you start to realize how many like bang bang plays there are, and it's, sometimes they're very, very close, and you want to make sure you're getting the call correct. Emerson might have been able to be safe there. He might have gotten that toe down on the bag before the ball goes into the back of that mitt. But first angle, he looked out. Second replay, he looked kind of safe. Third replay looked out. So let's see where his foot is here again. So he's on the bag, but the ball is in the mitt, but it's not in the back of the mitt. It's like in the air in the mitt. So, when do you call the person out? When the ball is the back of the mitt, right? So, bang bang plays like this is why ABS is good. Sometimes plays are going to go in our favor, sometimes they're not. But I would rather have the replay booth take a look, and sometimes we're going to be disappointed, and sometimes we're going to jump for joy. So. It's supposed to be tie goes to the runner, but it doesn't really feel like that's been the case this year with the ABS, though. Sometimes it feels like that's the way it goes, but, sometimes with the ABS, it feels like it's a little predictable and sometimes unpredictable. And now they say Colt is out. And again, he could have been safe there. I mean, it looked like the foot was on the bag before the ball hit the back of the mitt. The ball was in the mitt, but in the air. And then as you see the next frame, it hit the back. So to me, not being biased, he looked safe by, a millisecond. But apparently the ABS and the replay booth said he was out. So tough break there for Colt. Next up is J.P. Crawford. Perkins on the mound, Crawford in the box. Top of the 6th inning, 7-0 Mariners in one of the best games that we've seen Seattle play in quite some time. I mean, the only negative thing is the J.P. Crawford throwing error to Naylor, but, he did hit a home run to kind of compensate for that. And then Castillo pitched great. And again, we had a monster third inning with 6 runs. So again, we have a hard time lately even getting to 3. So to be able to get to 7 is huge. 0-1 pitch, fouled off, out of play, 4-seam fastball. 96 miles an hour there by Perkins. No balls and 2 strikes to J.P. Crawford. Britt in the building. How are you? 0-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. And that is 3 up and 3 down. I hope you had a good birthday. Hopefully your pup is doing well. You know, Paisley ended up having to go to the vet the same day on your birthday with your dog as well. And I know your dog had to stay in the vet for, a few days. You know, hopefully your dog is doing a little bit better. Paisley had an ear infection and got her ear flushed out. And I got meds, anti-itch, so she doesn't scratch her ear anymore. And she's doing much, much better. And hopefully your dog is doing better as well. Trident's up. Let's go M's. Let's go to the bottom of the 6th inning and see who's up next here for the A's. Next up for the Athletics, 0-for-2 with a K, catcher Shea Langoliers, one of the best catchers in 2026 in the MLB. Batting second, 0-for-2 with 2 Ks, DHing in the 4-hole, Brent Rooker. And batting third, 0-for-2 left fielder in the 5-hole, Tyler Soderstrom. Trident's up. Let's go M's. I just looked up, the value on the Jordan rookie that I ended up, getting in 2003 and sold for this dream. Back when I ended up selling it, it was worth about $5,000-$6,000. It's worth $15,000 right now. So sometimes you got to sacrifice things, for your dreams, to be able to take your dream to the next level. And again, once Jordan ends up passing away and more time, goes, towards the future, that $15,000 card will go to 30, 50, and then eventually 100. So, sometimes I wish, I still had it, but again, to be able to, use it to invest in myself and to be able to, follow my dreams, it definitely was worth it. And I've already been able to make, that money back. And hopefully one day I'll be able to get another Jordan rookie, for my collection down the road, but it's not really a priority at the moment. Let's go to the bottom of the 6th, 7-0 Seattle. First pitch there from Bryce Miller doing the piggyback from Luis Castillo. We saw Miller go first on his last start and Castillo come in after. And then this version of Castillo going first seems like it worked out a little bit better considering Castillo didn't shit the bed, which is always great to see. And on top of that, the offense showed up. 0-1 pitch, big swing and a miss there from Langoliers. No balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Shea Langoliers. Bottom of the 6th, 7-0 Seattle. Oh, 2 pitch from Miller to Langoliers and pops that one behind the plate, foul. 4-seam fastball there by Bryce. No balls and 2 strikes with nobody on and no outs. Bottom of the 6th inning, 7-0 Seattle. And obviously Brett knows as well, vet visits aren't cheap. I had to do my annual visit and she had a few vaccines and things that needed to be done. So, it ended up being like $450. And then a couple weeks later, she gets the ear infection. I was not financially prepared for, another visit. Usually it's just one visit a year, or at least that you hope, and the ear infection ended up being another 200, plus, so to have to pay, almost $700 in a matter of a few weeks, obviously I'll do anything for Paisley. There's no doubt about that. But thankfully we got some great people on the channel to help with that and definitely made it a little bit easier to take care of my pup. Popped up there to third, Langoliers, and Emerson is there in foul territory. And that is 1 up and 1 down. Nice job there by Colt Emerson. Plays pretty good at third base, but once he gets to short and takes over JP, it's going to be really an amazing thing to watch with him right next to Cole Young. Next up is Brent Rooker. 2 strikeouts so far. Having kind of a rough batting average here, 196, but he does have 7 homers and 25 ribbies. Brent Rooker. First pitch from Miller to Rooker. Takes a strike looking. High and away. 0-1 count. Reflect with the 50. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for your love and support. Oh, 1 pitch, big swing and a miss. No balls and 2 strikes with nobody on and 1 out. Bottom of the 6th inning, 7-0 Seattle. Appreciate you. Shout out to Megan. She came through for the first time in a few months, it feels like, but it was great to see her for a few minutes. Bash came in with a tenor, and then Reflect doing the Don't Know Train dance with the 20 and the 50. Thank you so much. I mean, again, every dollar counts, so that way that, things can be taken care of for Paisley, and just the basic things, paying the internet bill, the streaming fee, and everything that needs to be done, paying Mariners TV, all those things, kind of add up, and I appreciate you very, very much. 1-2 pitch, low and away. Knuckle curve missing there by Bryce Miller. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Brent Rooker. Yeah, they sent me an estimate on if, Paisley at some point, because I was feeding her bones, like Benny Bones from Petco, and she had some of the enamel pop off. So I stopped giving her bones to, chew on because she's an aggressive chewer, and they said if they ended up having to, take a tooth out and go through that whole process, it was going to be like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I don't have money like that, so hopefully, I usually, use Pet Lab Co. and have that little powder that you sprinkle on the food to give her fresh breath and to clean her teeth. But, no more hard bones for her for the rest of her life. Because again, she was, able to have them for 3 years plus. But again, if you keep, feeding those hard, bacon flavored bones, and then the enamel and the teeth chip and break off or have an issue, I mean, you're going to be looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I'm trying to, be as preventative as I can, I guess, so to speak. 0-1 pitch, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 1 strike to Tyler Soderstrom. How is the pup doing now, Brett? Is the pup at home or is the pup still at the vet? 1-1 pitch. Little dribbler goes behind the plate and foul. Yeah, great to see Miller dealing after Castillo as well. It's nice to be able to see things come together for the Mariners. We've had a very, very tough, start to the year, for the first third of the year. It definitely has not gone the way that we thought, but we just have to be able to tread water until we get Donnie and Cal back. Hope guys get, healthy and, start to play better. JP on defense, Castillo and Mooney as pitchers, 1 starter slash, starter pen guy, piggyback, and then obviously our closer in Mooney. 2-2 pitch. Does he go? No, he does not. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Tyler Soderstrom. Three-two pitch. Little dribbler up the middle. Cole Young is there. Throw to first. Got it to Naylor. And that is 3 up and 3 down. And again, once we, have Cole Young and then Emerson at short, and then we have Donnie at third with Naylor at first, it's actually going to be one of the better infields in baseball. And I really do believe in a few years, Cole and Colt might end up being the best duo at second base and shortstop defensively, sooner than later. And then if they can get their batting average up, they could end up being, maybe one day all-stars together. That would be awesome. End of the 6th inning, 7-0 Seattle. We haven't said that often this year. Try to hits up. Let's go M's. See who's up next here for the Mariners in the top of the 7th. 50th anniversary for the Seattle Mariners, 40 plus years on the radio. Riz is retiring after this year, so we want to make sure that he goes out with a bang. We love ya, the icon, the legend, Rick Riz. Next up for the Mariners, 1 for 3 with a K, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Batting second, 1 for 3 with a run and an RBI. First baseman, it's Nails, Josh Naylor. And batting third, 2 for 3 with a run and an RBI, right fielder, Randy Arozarena. I felt like I needed to get a few new photos, to kind of spark the energy a little bit. And, luckily we were able to capture a little bit of that Soto mojo and that Mariner magic here today. Trident's up. Let's go, Ems. Oh, okay. Yeah, not probably the most ideal thing for a cat or a dog to have an issue on your birthday and whatnot, but glad to hear that, he's home with you now. Rebecca in the building. How are you? Shout out to our female audience, as well as everyone watching in the United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, Asia, New Zealand, Australia, and beyond. We got a great global viewership on the channel. And again, our female viewership has gone, through the roof. A few years ago, it was around 5% or under. Now we're usually in that 15 to 22% range, which is fantastic. So, when we can end up, kind of gaining some ground. And we've also got a big boost, in the younger audience and the older audience as well. Popped up there by Julio, and they almost collide into each other, but thankfully they dodge each other at the last minute, and that is 1 away. Henry Bolte there in center field got real lucky. Down goes Julio. That is 1 up and 1 down. Next up in the 3-hole, first baseman is Josh Naylor. Let him know. We got 194 in the room. And after playing down, to the Royals, I feel like we're playing up to the Athletics because they're not a last place team, like normal or second to last. They're first. So the mentality has changed, and that's what we needed. Because again, as everyone knows, when we typically play the Royals, the Angels, and the A's, we usually play down to them. And a lot of times we'll only win 1 game, sometimes none, and get swept. So definitely coming out with a bang today is exactly what I wanted to see. Oh, an error here by the Athletics, and Naylor is safe. Wow. I wasn't expecting Nick Kurtz to have an error. So now we got Kurtz with an error, and we got JP with an error. And this is a pretty routine play for Kurtz, but he mistimes it and then ends up bobbling it. And, Naylor is slow. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He may not be Jared Vogelback, but, he can steal bags, but he's not the fastest man in the world, but still fast enough to get to first. Nice job there, Josh Naylor. Next up, the most consistent hitter on the Mariners since the beginning of the season, Randy Arozarena. The only player that has been able to break 300 recently, but hopefully, he's at 297 right now, but hopefully Emerson will be able to get up there with him, sooner than later, as well as Luke Raley. First pitched by Perkins to Randy, fouls that one off, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, big swing and a miss. No balls and 2 strikes to Randy Arozarena. Absolutely, Rebecca. I agree. We've gone through a lot of heartache and heartbreak and a lot of bad losses, a lot of errors, a lot of poor play on top of injuries and having to deal with Dan Wilson not really making proper adjustments. Like, can we finally get to a point where Luke Raley plays every day, and move JP from the leadoff spot for, Cole Young? I think that would be better until Donnie comes back. I think I would rather have that, or even Colt Emerson leading off, even though I know they like Colt, in the 8 or the 9, so at the end of the game, you might be able to have, Colt Emerson in the 9 and then Cole Young at the 1 and then Julio at the 2. That would be probably better than having JP there, but, I'm very concerned about JP and those errors, but we'll see how it goes. And Randy is called out on strikes with the challenge. and that is 2 away. Next up is Luke Rayleigh. Let's go, Luke. Let's see if we get another nuke out of Luke. Luke and Canzone were, due. And first pitch, Rayleigh crushes it into right, and a beautiful single there for Luke Rayleigh. Nice job by Luke. Next up is Cole Clutch Young. And there's not very many guys in the lineup that could probably hit from any spot. And obviously some guys, obviously are protected, Julio, Cal, Naylor, Randy, and obviously deservedly so. But Rayleigh, if he's leading the team in home runs and typically, up there leading the team in RBIs, I think Rayleigh deserves to be treated like those guys. He should be playing every day. If you want to have Canzone split, fine. He's not as, consistent as Rayleigh, but I would love to see Rayleigh play every day. I think that would really solidify not only his confidence, but we would be able to get more production out of him offensively and defensively. But again, we have Rayleigh, Canzone, and now Victor Robles back that could all DH or play right field. So there's a little bit of a log jam there, but Connor Joe's in AAA, so we don't have to worry about him anymore. We still got Rob Refsnyder, who also could DH and play in right field, but we know Rob is very inconsistent, hasn't really figured it out against left-handed pitching just yet here in Seattle. First pitch is fouled off there by Cole Young. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch in there for another strike. No balls and 2 strikes from Perkins to Young. Top of the 7th with runners at first and second and 2 outs. Come on, Cole Clutch Young. 0-2 pitch. Low and at the knees with a sweeper missing by Perkins. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Cole Young. With runners in scoring position, batting .306. Great improvement from last year to this year for Cole Young, specifically defensively, but he has been getting better as a hitter as well. Still, once in a while, we'll go 0 for 4, in back-to-back games, but usually that's the most that he'll go on a drought for, is typically 0 for 8, and then that third game he'll get going. But, obviously a very young player, and I'm very excited to see Cole Young and Colt Emerson, turn into a dynamic duo. 1-2 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Perkins to Young. Yeah, exactly. The owner of the place where I take Paisley to get her nails trimmed and her body washed is a big Blue Jay fan around, my age, and ended up going, to Seattle, obviously when they had the playoff matchup, and, we had a little conversation, after Paisley had her ear infection. I wasn't able to wash her yet, but I got her nails trimmed and, had a little talk, and, we were both kind of, going over, the expectations from last year to this year, and, both of us, not really happy on where, things are sitting. But again, like you said, it's it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I am looking forward to seeing the Blue Jays against the Mariners on the 4th of July. And, hopefully we can beat them down, but we'll see. Big swing and a miss, and down he goes. And that is out number 3. Let's go to the bottom of the 7th inning and see who's up next here for the Athletics. And we're normally, a second half team. We normally don't play, very good ball in the first half. We're normally 500 or a few games above, but again, I don't think anyone anticipated us being, 2, 3, 4, 5 games below, and on top of the injuries and the errors and the poor play, I don't think anyone anticipated Castillo being this bad, JP and Julio having all these errors, but Julio's cleaned it up. And no one anticipated Mooney going from top 5, top 10 closer to being like bottom 10, but he's getting better, but still a little unreliable. And then obviously have a lot of AAA guys in the pen, and you really only have one guy that's really trustworthy every day, and Matt Brash, and he just came back from an injury. So a lot of things kind of going sideways, but I do believe once Donnie is back, and if he can stay healthy and put him in the leadoff spot, that's really going to help us set the tone at the top of the order in beginning of games. And then if we can get Cal, just to be Cal Raleigh again, and he's not going to be 60 home run Cal, but he could still end up hitting somewhere between 20 and 30. And if he's able to do that, that could really give us a lift to, get above 500, and then potentially, maybe actually win 4 games in a row or 5 in a row or 6 in a row and potentially be 4 games above 500. We haven't really been able to even get a game above 500 with all the injuries and poor play and poor managing. But, I still have a lot of faith in this team. I'll never give up on the Seattle Mariners. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, just like Reflect mentioned. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 7th and see who's up next. Next up in the 6th hole, center fielder Henry Bolte. Batting second in the 7th hole, second baseman formerly of the Mets, Jeff McNeil. And batting third, 0 for 2 with 2 Ks, second baseman Zach Geloff. Trident's up. Let's go M's. $16 subs to go to 24,100. We got 207 in the room, and we're at 121 at the likes. $79 to 200. We're at 100 on the dono train, 100 to go. Shout out to Megan with the 20, Bash with the 10, Reflect with a 20, and Reflect with a 50. And again, we just hit our single highest donation ever on the channel yesterday by Odin's son, $1,500 single donation, which is insane. And again, he's the first person that ever believed in me and donated to me on the channel many, many years ago. And anytime you can end up, getting a donation like that, it really can not necessarily change your life. It's not like life-changing money, but let's be honest, for people that stream, that's a big deal. Anything, getting $1 is a big deal. $5, $10, 20, 50, 100, and then anything above 100, 200, 500, 1,000, it's huge. It's really, really big. And, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I really work hard, on this. And, I've been doing this for 14 years. This is my 10th year on YouTube. I plan on doing this for the rest of my life. And, again, when you can end up getting support like that, it really is big. And, the biggest donation prior to that one was $1,300. And that was from Shepard Williams maybe 3-4 years ago. So it's been a minute that we've had a big dono like that. And, again, thank you so much, Odin's son. You are the MVP. First pitch from Miller to Bolte in there for a big swing and a miss, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, fouls that one off into right field. No balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Bolte. Miller on the mound, and Henry Bolte in the box. O2 pitch, low and away. Splitter missing there by Miller. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Miller to Bolte. One-two pitch, low and away with that sweeper missing there by Miller. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Bolte. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. 2-2 pitch for Miller. Little dribbler up the middle at third. Emerson is there. Strong throw to Naylor. Got him. And that is 1 away. Houston combined no-hitter at Texas, really. Imai, Okert, and Santa. No shit. And especially with Houston being terrible at pitching this year, that's wild. That the Astros were able to get a combined no-hitter when they've been maybe the worst pitching team in baseball this year. But again, you never know, in baseball. Things are, what have you done for me lately? But just because you're bad doesn't mean that you can't have a good performance, from time to time, like even Luis Castillo today. We've been waiting on a performance like this. Little dribbler to JP, throw to first, and a little bit more of a normal throw. And maybe, the management and coaches need to tell JP, stop throwing sidearm, because your sidearm approach doesn't work. It ends up not getting to Naylor. So, throwing traditionally, over the shoulder seems like it works a little bit better. And that one actually goes to Naylor, and that is 2 up and 2 down. AL West team ERA, we're number 1, 3.66, but it could be better, especially with Castillo, kind of shitting the bed. Astros 5.08, so we have to be thankful we're not them. First pitch to Geloff is a ball, 1-0 count. Bottom of the 7th inning, 7-0 Seattle. Trident's up, let's go M's. One-0 pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and no strikes from Miller to Geloff. Two-0 pitch goes into foul territory. Adults and kids scrambling for that foul ball souvenir. 2 balls and 1 strike from Miller to Geloff. Two-one pitch, popped up behind the plate, and foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Geloff. Bottom of the 7th inning, 7-0 Seattle with nobody on and 2 outs. And this has been one of the, better complete games that we've played besides the JP Crawford error. But other than that, but he did hit a home run to kind of make up for it, but still can't expect anything to be perfect. Little slow dribbler towards third, and that ends up being foul. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Bottom of the 7th inning, 7-0 Seattle. And again, hopefully we'll have quite a few more, quality games like this where we can actually get, runs scored, where we can get 5, runs, 7 to 10 hits or more, and actually have the pitching staff do their job and go above and beyond, like Castillo and Miller have done today. 2-2 pitch, low and away. Count now is full after that splitter misses. 3 balls, 2 strikes, nobody on, 2 outs. Bottom of the 7th, 7-0 Seattle. Three-two pitch, little dribbler that goes into right field. Luke Raley is there, and a nice single there by Geloff. Rockies trading Freeland for Pages, Will Smith, and Roki Sasaki. Really? I mean, I'm calling the game right now, so I don't have anything, popping up on my end, but so is that like a rumor or is that confirmed? Because I don't see anything on my end. Where are you getting the information from? Are you getting it from like MLB.com or ESPN.com or somewhere else? Is it coming from like Buster Only, like, like an actual source that's like respected and trusted, or 1-0 pitch? Because I that's kind of crazy. One pitch, low and away. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing for the Rockies to confirm, but usually something as big as that'll be on MLB.com or ESPN. That's not something that isn't going to be overlooked. So, I mean, I don't see it on my end, but we'll see. I mean, those players, I highly doubt the Dodgers would trade, though. I mean, Will Smith is a staple. Roki obviously has been, up and down, with his progression, obviously starting off kind of, not ideally what you wanted, but, at times has gotten better. But yeah, I don't think that's a real trade. That sounds made up to me. 2-2 pitch, low and at the knees. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Hernandez. Yeah. Sounds made up. I mean, you're not going to trade away 3 really good players for one. 3-2 pitch, little slow dribbler. Throw to first. And got him. Yeah, I think you got bamboozled, my guy. Yeah, there's no word about it. I'm on the Rockies website. 0, nothing. I think you got bamboozled, my guy. Yeah, and they would never trade Pages or Will Smith. Sasaki maybe last year if they could get someone in the offseason that they thought could be better, maybe, but they really like him, so I think you got lied to. That's like saying that the Mariners are going to trade, Julio, Randy, and Naylor to the Astros. It's not going to happen. End of the 7th inning, 7-0 Seattle. Next up for the Mariners in the top of the 8th, 1 for 3 with a run, 2 RBIs and a K, Dominic Canzone. Batting second, 1 for 3, catcher Johnny Pereda. And batting third, 0 for 2 with a run and a base on ball, third baseman Colt Emerson. Trident's up. Let's go, Ems. We're not spreading misinformation here. Anything that ends up being real immediately goes to MLB.com, ESPN, Buster Only. You already know, how things go down. Seemed fishy right when I read it too. Solo home run by J.P. Crawford, 2-run jack by Luke Raley, 2-run jack by Dominic Canzone. A fantastic game here so far. And let's see if we can find a way, somehow, some way to even get to double digits if possible. Only 3 runs away. But if we could end up getting a shutout, that would be great. But we just have to hope that tomorrow that the bats are still going to be hot, because a lot of times when we score, a big number, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 runs, a lot of times that next game we get 0 or 1. So hopefully that won't be the case tomorrow. First pitch from Perkins to Canzone, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, high and away, 1 ball and 1 strike to Dominic Canzone. 1-1 pitch with the cutter in there for a strike from Perkins. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Perkins to Canzone. One-two pitch, popped up and behind the plate. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Dominic Canzone. One-two pitch with the sweeper and another ball there. Jack Perkins on the mound, Dominic Canzone in the box. 2-2 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Down goes Canzone. 6 strikeouts for Perkins in relief, and he's been, definitely good. Much better than obviously we saw from Savali. Perkins on the mound. Next up is Johnny Pareda. First pitch, a little dribbler towards first base, and grabs the ball in fair territory and tags Pareda as they come face to face, and that is 2 up and 2 down. Next up in the 9-hole, third baseman Colt Emerson, who went 4 for 4 yesterday with 3 doubles and a single, and one of the only players at 20 years old to go 4 for 4 besides Ken Griffey Jr. So pretty awesome to be able to see Colt, do something like that so early into his Mariner tenure. Let him know all day. First pitch in there for a ball to Colt Emerson. And like I said, between him and Luke Raley, they probably have the best chances catching Randy, to try to get to 300. 1-0 pitch. A little blooper into right field. And that is caught. And that is 3 up and 3 down. Jack Perkins definitely has done a good job. Since coming in from Savali, we haven't really been able to add on. But thankfully, we still have a beautiful 7-0 lead. 6 runs in the third, 1 in the fourth. But we haven't got anything in 4 innings. But again, we're, very comfortable at this time, 7 runs, 10 hits. Really the only downside is the 1 error by JP Crawford, but it's been a great day. And again, we've needed a day like this in a long while. A lot of things have not gone our way, against the White Sox, against the Royals. It's like when you only end up winning 1 game, in a series, or you end up getting swept like we did by the Padres at home and on the road, it doesn't make you feel good, so it's always good to, come out swinging, and hopefully we'll be able to repeat and do it tomorrow as well. Let's go to the bottom of the 8th and see who's up next here for the A's. Next up for the Athletics, 0 for 2 with a base on ball and a K, right fielder Carlos Cortez. Batting second, 0 for 2 with a base on ball, first baseman Nick Kurtz. And batting third, 0 for 3 with a K, catcher Shea Langeliers. One of the best catchers in the game in 2026. Really like his game, Shea Langeliers. I really like Drake Baldwin as well. He's having a great year in the National League. Baldwin is probably one of the best in the National League at catcher, and Shea Langeliers is definitely the best in the American League. And hopefully Cal can get on the Drake Baldwin, Shea Langeliers level at some point before the season is over. So it's my buddy Brooks Beats. So he's up and coming producer, here in the Pacific Northwest. And, anytime that I can end up supporting his dreams as well, him for me as well, we're definitely going to, do that. And again, I really appreciate all the hard work that he's put in. We both have had similar journeys, where we both partied a lot, both got overweight. He ended up finding love in running, and ended up getting to a point where he's dropped about 100 pounds like myself and has been able to keep it off. And now he's like running, races and mini marathons. And it's just crazy, to see someone, go from partying and drinking every day and being overweight and, kind of maybe being a little lost in life. And then now finally finding a purpose, focusing on the music and the beats, but also, getting into good shape and, being sober and eating healthy. And, and the last race that he competed in, he ran like 70 miles. So it's very inspiring, little dribbler towards first, toe tap on the bag there by Bryce Miller. And that is 1 away. Down goes Carlos Cortez, and again, it's like I do 5 miles a day, 7 days a week with 3 different separate walks with Paisley, and I'll see him on socials and just, nonchalantly, he'll be making a post and it's like, oh, I ran today, and I look at the mileage and it's like 10 miles. I'm like, holy cow. And he's running, not taking a break, or a very minimal break, and then there's others where he's doing like 20 in a day, like running nonstop for an hour or 2. So it's very inspiring. And, I definitely love seeing my friends, win and, change their life for the better. Definitely an inspiration. Bottom of the 8th, 7-0 Seattle. First pitch in there to Nick Kurtz from Miller. 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch. Big swing and a miss, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Miller to Kurtz. And again, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. It's just that a lot of people, don't have the motivation, or they have a fear of failure, or they end up being a little lazy, make excuses, and again, if you don't eat healthy, it's gonna, weigh you down and bog you down with all of the bad food that's out there. So it's like a real commitment that you have to change your life, and you are who you hang around. So if you got a lot of, bad people around you, you got to be able to kind of step away and know who your real friends are. And, and again, once you end up doing a positive habit, for 3 weeks in a row for about 21 days, it becomes kind of a permanent thing in your life. So it's obviously the hardest thing to start and then to keep up with something. But, if you're a motivated person, and you don't like the way that you look in the mirror, or, whatever the case that, may be, if you want to be able to make a change, you can do it. You just have to, stick with it, and again, it's like, me and Brooks are, great examples of that. We both were almost 300 pounds. We both would drink every day and party all the time, and, didn't really, focus on the things that we should have focused on. And, obviously me really paying attention to, this channel and trying to take it to the next level, and, making sure that Pop has the greatest life that she can while she's here. And obviously with him, it's the music and the running, and, you just got to be able to find your why, 3-2 pitch, and got him. And that is strike 3. Down goes Nick Kurtz, 2 up and 2 down. But once you figure out your why, like why, what gets you going, what makes you happy, what makes you want to get up and do something above and beyond. And, again, a lot of people, kind of are lost in life, but again, that doesn't mean that you can't start a new dream, no matter what age you're at. Like a lot of people, don't end up finding their purpose or their dream until later in life. So some people end up getting it early, in their teens or in their early 20s. But for a lot of people, it ends up being in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, when they have like a breakthrough aha moment, and then you have that purpose in your life. So first pitch ends up being a ball to Langoliers. 1-0 pitch, popped up, back, and gone. And Shea Langoliers, the best catcher in 2026, with Drake Baldwin on the Braves, is probably number 2. Another home run, and that's number 13 for Shea Langoliers. And now the Athletics finally get on the board here in the bottom of the 8th. I was really hoping to get a shutout, but again, definitely tough against this good Athletic team. But again, with me, I don't really drink anymore. I don't eat fast food anymore. I don't really drink sodas anymore. I eat a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, and it's different. It's hard, to go from eating fast food that you think that tastes good every day, and then you get fat, and you realize once you get all of that out of your system, like now, if I tried to eat restaurant food or a burger, my body rejects it. Like, I've been eating so clean and healthy for the last 2 or 3 years. Like, I eat something, sausage or a burger or something like that once in a blue moon, and you don't feel good. Like, your body rejects it after a while, and you get all sick feeling. And again, you don't feel that way when you're eating it all the time, but once you go clean, and you take care of your body with exercise and good food, then you really start to realize all the poisons and things that are in, fast food and in restaurants and whatnot. So pitch is low and away. 2 balls and no strikes to Brent Rooker. 2-0 pitch in there for a strike. Big swing and a miss, low and away. 2-1 pitch popped up into right field. Luke Raley is there, and that is 3 up and 3 down. But again, it definitely wasn't, an easy transition, right away. But again, my big thing was Paisley, my pup, and again, it's like when you have a pup that needs exercise, there is no, I don't feel like it. It's like, I have to do it, and so when you have that extra motivation where it's not just me, it's me and the pup, and then, there is no, I don't feel like it. Like, I have to do this, for her. And then, so essentially we kind of saved each other. not only did I get her in shape, but she got me in shape. And, I don't have depression or anxiety anymore. I'm not overweight anymore. I've been able to walk 5 miles a day, 7 days a week for 2-3 years straight. And if you would have told me a couple years ago that I would have, be doing this, I would have just laughed at you. I said, there's just no way, but again, you are a lot stronger than you think, and again, if you take away the bad people in your life, the haters and the negative people that are draining your energy, and you can focus on the things that are important to you, family and friends and people that mean something to you, you'll definitely be able to turn your life around for the better. Me and Brooks have done it, and we'll continue to do it, for the rest of our lives. End of the 8th inning, 7-1 Seattle. Let's see who's up next here for the Mariners. In the top of the 9th, let's see if we can make up that home run that we just gave up from Shea Langoliers. Next up, 1 for 4 with a run, RBI, and 2 Ks. Has an error, but a home run, J.P. Crawford. Pinch hitting for Julio Rodriguez is going to be Victor Robles. And then batting third will be Josh Naylor. We're going to get the Victor Robles photo prepped here. So we're going to go JP, Victor Robles, pinch hitting for Julio, since we're at the end of the game, and then Josh Naylor. First pitch into JP is a ball, 1-0 count. Pitch with the sweeper, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Jack Perkins to J.P. Crawford. Obviously, I'm a Ken Griffey Jr. guy because I met him when I was young. So, but I got a lot of love and respect for, Griffey and Randy. Ken Griffey Jr., Randy Johnson, the big unit, Edgar Martinez, Ichiro Suzuki, and then a lot of these amazing players that we have on the team. I love Julio, I love Cal, I love Colt Young and Colt Emerson. There's a lot of guys, not necessarily just one that I can really single out. 2-1 pitch, big, swing and a miss. But if I had to choose like one, person for like my all time, it's definitely Ken Griffey Jr. When you end up meeting, one of your heroes, when you're young, and then you end up getting the photo and the autograph, and you end up having those memories, then, it definitely changes you for the better. 2-2 pitch, big, swing and a miss, down goes JP, and that is 1 away. I got 2 heroes in my life, 1, my dad, and 2, Ken Griffey Jr. Next up, pinch hitting for Julio Rodriguez. We actually get a chance to see Victor Robles. Let's go, Victor. On deck is Josh Naylor. First pitch with a sweeper from Jack Perkins in there to Victor Robles in there for a strike looking, 0-1 count. Top of the 9th inning, 7-1 Mariners. Shea Langoliers with a solo dinger moments ago on Bryce Miller, but overall, it's been a great day. Really, 2 things have only gone wrong for us. We gave up a home run to Shea Langoliers, and J.P. Crawford had an error throwing to Naylor, and everything else has just been fantastic. Castillo was great. Miller overall was great. The bats came alive. Home runs by JP, Rayleigh, and Canzone. Really a game that we desperately have been wanting for quite some time. Pitch fouled off there by Robles. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Perkins to Robles. And I got a chance to see my best friend Justin yesterday, and we ended up going to the biggest arcade in the country, Next Level Pinball Museum. They got over 800, games. So you pay like a flat fee of like 20 something, and then you get to play for as long as you want. And it's not just pinball. It's old school games, new games, racing games, fighting games, you name it, they got it. Shooters, it's an incredible place, and had a blast yesterday. 2-2 pitch, little slow dribbler up the middle, and Robles grounds out, and that is 2 away. And next up here for the Mariners in the 3-hole, first baseman Josh Naylor. Let's go Nails. Yeah, they had awesome machines there in the amount that they have. I mean, hundreds. And Naylor with a base knock into left field. Like, I didn't play too many pinball, matchups there. They had a couple wrestling, WWF old school ones that were pretty cool. But honestly, the only pinball machine I played was Rick and Morty, because it actually has, the sound effects, from the TV show, the cartoon coming through the pinball machine. So that was a lot of fun. And, pinball's hard. Anyone that, has ever played, it's not easy. Nice base knock there by Naylor, but got a chance to play Superstars and WrestleFest and some shooters and, a lot of racing games. A lot of fun. First pitch is high and inside to Randy Arosarena. And Randy drops the bat down, doesn't want to get hit in the head. 1-0 count. Yeah, they have a few Star Wars games there as well. Like where you can actually sit down and you can be in one of the, vehicles and whatnot through space, and you go through missions and stuff. So 1-0 pitch, another ball there to Randy. 2 balls and no strikes from Perkins to Arosarena. Top of the 9th inning, 7-1 Seattle with a runner at first and 2 outs. Yeah, Donnie is due back around June 5th, June 6th, and we're still not for sure when Cal will be back. But, as long as they don't rush him back and they're healthy, that will be when we start to hopefully take off once we get Donnie back as well as Cal. 2-0 pitch in there for a strike. 2-1 pitch to Randy, low and away. After Randy fouls off that last pitch, takes one low and away. Count now is 3 balls and 1 strike to Randy Arosarena. 15 more to get to 150. We got 210 in the room. So if we can get 15 people to hit that like button, that would be great. 3-1 pitch, hard hit ball, deep left field and gone. And Randy ends up making up for the home run from Shea Langoliers, 2-run jack. And just like that, 9-1 Mariners. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about, baby. The home run party. And all you got to do is ask the sports gods, right? We want to get a home run to make up for the one that we gave up. And Randy, he's like, you know what? I'll do it. 9-1 Mariners. Trident's up. Let's go M's. Now Perkins is done after giving up the home run. Next up is Luke Raley. When's the last time the Mariners hit 4 home runs? It's been a minute. We're very home run dependent. Most of the time we get none, and there's going to be times where we get 1. But normally when we get 1 early within the first 3 innings, it usually tends to lead to another and then maybe another. And then sometimes if we're lucky enough, like today, we get the 4th one. So, what a great performance here. I mean, obviously winning 9-0 would have been great, and Miller not giving up that home run. But Shea Langoliers is the best catcher in baseball this year, and again, Drake Baldwin on the Braves is probably the best in the National League. So, when you end up giving up a home run and Langoliers now is at 13, so it's like, he may not be on the Munetaka Murakami, Kyle Schwarber, Aaron Judge level, but he's creeping, as far as the catcher is concerned. So he's kind of doing what Cal, was doing early in the season last year. So, but we're doing good now. Top of the 9th, 9-1 Seattle. Trident's up. Let's go M's. And Randy has been the most consistent hitter, believe it or not, from the beginning of the season. And with that home run, he's only 0.1 away from 300. He's at 299 now. Rayleigh's at 272, and Emerson's at 250. So hopefully we can get Rayleigh and Emerson, and then Naylor has got up to 250 as well. Julio at 260. So still got a little ways to go, but great to see. We're getting better. Gained another sub since the last commercial break. 15 subs to go to 24,100. $12 hits tonight, 6 singles, 2 doubles, 4 home runs. Is that good? Damn right it is. 1-0 pitch, big swing and a miss there by Luke Raley. Sinker, 1 ball and 1 strike to Luke Raley. One pitch, and Raley fouls it off himself. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and 2 outs. Top of the 9th inning, 9-1 Seattle. Trident's up. Let's go M's. Definitely a statement game. Paisley's in here now. All right, we're going to the bottom of the 9th after Raley ends up striking out there high and away. And we'll see if Bryce can finish it off here. See who's up next. Here in the bottom of the 9th inning with an 8-run lead. Trident's up. Let's go M's. One of the more enjoyable games that we've been able to watch this season. We've had a lot of heartache and heartbreak, but we've had a few moments of joy, but definitely not enough. But this is definitely one of them. Next up for the Athletics, in the 5-hole, left fielder Tyler Soderstrom. Batting second, 0 for 3 with a K. In the 6-hole, center fielder Henry Bolte. And batting third in the 7-hole, second baseman formerly of the New York Mets, 1 for 3, Jeff McNeil. And they're going to have Miller try to finish this game off and end the game. It's kind of a unique approach just to have 2 pitchers and only 2 pitchers if you're able to go the distance, but we didn't end up getting the dub when Miller went first and Castillo went second. But this time around, Castillo starts, does a great job. The bats come alive as well. Miller gives up the 1 home run, but we can live up with that, And again, Miller has overall been pretty damn good since he's come back from the injury. And I don't know how long they're going to be doing this, kind of platooning, back and forth, piggybacking with Miller and Castillo. But if anything, if it makes Castillo better, we already have enough confidence in Miller that he can pitch, as a starter, and Castillo can just be solely in the pen. But again, this could actually help maybe Castillo's confidence, even though, he should be a guy that's primarily only in the pen. But today, definitely had his best start of the year. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 9th. And again, you're not going to see too many teams go with 2 starters the whole game, but again, second time around, looks like it's going to work. First pitch from Miller to Soderstrom. Low and at the knees on the corner of the strike zone, 4-seam fastball, 0-1 count. Trident's up. Let's go M's. Last time we got 4 home runs when Dom went 5 for 5. Yeah. And a little dribbler that goes towards Randy. And that's going to end. Get it, Randy. What are you doing? Finally, Randy gets the ball out of the corner. And that's a double for Tyler Soderstrom. Nice hit there by Soderstrom. Anytime you can get a ground ball to Randy, it's going to be a double, single. Singles turn into doubles, doubles turn into triples, and triples could be inside the park. So got to limit how many balls go to his area. Next up is Henry Bolte. First pitch to Bolte. Cracks it into right field and fading foul, 0-1 count. We definitely got that Soto mojo today. Feels good. And we definitely have had a lot of bad losses this year. But one of the most enjoyable games that I've called all year, no doubt. Especially getting the 6 runs in the third inning. I'm not sure if that's the most we've gotten in a single inning all year. It feels like it, though. Fan gets that foul ball and is excited with his buddies there. Slider into right field, out of play there from Bolte. 0-2 pitch from Miller to Bolte. High and away. Four-seam fastball missing there by Bryce. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Miller to Bolte. Bottom of the 9th inning, runner at second, Soderstrom with no outs. Mariners up by 8 with a 9-1 lead. All right, we're at 150. We got 209 in the room. Let's see if we can get to 175 before this one's over. We're at 100 on the Dono train and 15 subs to go to 24,100. Appreciate the help all day. One-two pitch. And that ends up fading into right field and foul. And you got a dog pile of kids and adults going for every foul ball out there. They're having fun. Nothing like getting a foul ball or a home run ball at a game. I mean, it really, takes your fandom to a whole nother level when it happens to you. And if it happens more than once, then you really get the bug for it. 1-2 pitch. Little dribbler up the middle. And Emerson just not in time for any throw there. Nice base knock there by Henry Bolte. Now they got runners at first and third with no outs. Come on, Bryce, settle down and settle in. Next up is Jeff McNeil. We need a strikeout and a double play, or a double play and a strikeout. Wow, that's crazy. I've been to like 9 games and I've gotten 3 balls, but I'm a honey badger too, so. I was lucky enough to get 2 AAA balls when I was 10, so I kind of know where to sit and, how to go about it, but also it's a little bit of luck. But on top of that, I'm usually not eating or drinking or on my phone. I'm focused on the game. So, and as anyone knows, with foul balls and home run balls, in a matter of a split second, if you're not paying attention, you're not going to get the ball. So you have to really have a little bit of luck, but, a few other factors as well. But that's a crazy amount of games that you've been to. But I got a Kike Hernandez ball when the Dodgers came to town around 2019. I got a Julio Rodriguez rookie foul ball in 2022. And then a few weeks later after that, I predicted on the channel I would get an Aaron Judge ball when I went to go see the Yankees, and I did. I don't know what the odds of that, prediction and actually having it come true were, like 1 in a billion, but, pretty crazy. 1-1 pitch. Low and away. Splitter 84 miles an hour there by Bryce Miller. 2 balls and 1 strike with runners on the corners at first and third with no outs. Bottom of the 9th, 9-1 Seattle. And we desperately need a strikeout or a double play. Two-one pitch. Line drive towards right field and foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Miller to McNeil. Congrats. Anytime you can end up being sober, it's one of those things that's easy, to let yourself go. It's easy, to get addicted to bad things, also depending on who you're hanging around, but to be able to try to make a change for your life, to be better, health-wise, and, that's huge. Little dribbler up the middle and double play, I believe. Runner comes home. Nice job there by Josh Naylor being able to get the ball, tag the runner, go to, toe tap on the bag and get the double play. Yeah, the runner comes home from third, but, perfect spot for him to be able to tag Bolte and then get to first. We were kind of hoping for one of those plays a few games ago, but it ended up going out of Josh's range to tag the runner. He was already too far to second base, but that time perfectly times it up and obviously had no time to be able to, get that runner coming home. So 9-2 Seattle, but I think every Mariner fan will take that. 1-0 pitch from Miller to Geloff. In there for a strike looking. 1 ball and 1 strike from Miller to Geloff. Yeah, congratulations to anyone that is trying to, change their life for the better. Whether it's eating right, exercising, those are really big. And then, the more that you can keep yourself, busy, not only does that make you feel better, but then you have less time to get depressed and have anxiety and, have other things, kind of go sideways in your life. So bottom of the 9th inning, nobody on with 2 outs. We got 1 ball and 2 strikes. We're 1 strike away from victory. One-two pitch. Big swing and a miss, and that is the ball game. Let's go. Piggyback, strategy worked here for Bryce Miller as well as La Piedra, Luis Castillo. And then the offense came alive as well. Awesome. What a game. Nine runs, 12 hits. We did have the error by JP, but I think we can live with that. He did hit a home run to kind of, make up for it. Final score, Seattle Mariners 9, Athletics 2. And when the Mariners win, what do? We fucking dance. Mariners win, Mariners win, Mariners win. Fuck yeah, let's go. Huge game. Now let's go over the stat line here real quick before we call it a day here. All right, so Carlos Cortez 0 for 3, and he's batting .341 on the season and had a great batting average against the Mariners first time around, but we were able to get him skunked today, so that's great. Nick Kurtz 0 for 3, which is rare. Shea Langoliers 1 for 4 with a home run and an RBI, obviously just a few minutes back there, obviously having 13 now on the season, which is awesome for catchers. Brent Rooker, 0 for 4, which is a little odd. Tyler Soderstrom, 1 for 4. And he ended up getting a run. Henry Bolte, 1 for 4. Jeff McNeil, 1 for 4. Zach Geloff, 1 for 4. And Daryl Hernandez, 2 for 3. And then let's go to the flip side here for our Seattle Mariners. Actually had a fantastic game. JP Crawford, 1 for 5 with a run, home run, and an RBI. Did have an error, but ended up hitting the home run, so that's obviously good there for JP. Still concerned, with the sidearm throws from shortstop, but great job hitting, that home run. And again, only had the 1 error, but still 1 error is too many. Julio Rodriguez, 1 for 4. Josh Naylor, 2 for 5 with a RBI and 2 runs. Randy Arozarena, awesome game. 3 for 5, 2 runs, a home run, and 3 RBIs. Batting average now, .299. Next hit will put him over 300, and we'll get that tomorrow. Luke Raley, 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a home run. Great job by Luke Raley hitting the nuke. Cole Young, 1 for 4 with a run. Dominic Canzone, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a home run. Johnny Pereda even got a hit, 1 for 4. And after going 4 for 4 with 3 doubles and a single, went 0 for 3 today, but did get a run, Colt Emerson. And then let's look at the final line for our 2 pitchers. So Luis Castillo, 4 innings pitched, 2 hits, no earned runs, 2 walks, 6 Ks, 68 pitches, 42 strikes, 5.90 ERA, the best start of the year for Luis Castillo, which is awesome. And then Bryce Miller did give up a few runs, a home run and a run, but overall, good job. 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 4 Ks, 83 pitches, 55 strikes, 2.25 ERA. And again, the offense came up big. 6 runs in the 3rd, 1 run in the 4th, 2 in the 9th. And Bryce Miller gets the win and Savali gets the loss. Space Needle Sonics with a $5. Appreciate you. Every dollar counts. And if you haven't smashed the like button yet, please do on your way out. Jerry's like, I got to get back to work now, but it's obviously going to be a good night for a lot of us, and I'll be live tomorrow, for hopefully another dub against this Athletic team, and then we have an early game on Wednesday. So let's see if we can win tomorrow, and then we can talk about sweep if we get that, but try to win 2 out of 3. But if we win tomorrow, then we can hopefully go for the sweep all day. I appreciate you for all the love and support, obviously there. Appreciate you very, very much. And shout out to Megan with the 20. Bash with a 10er, Reflect with a 20, Reflect with a 50, and Space Needle with a $5. Appreciate you guys very, very much. All right, one sec here. Here. All right, all day. You've earned it all day. Again, I try to be able to have a certain amount of people that I can end up having, support the channel and whatnot. Some people are going to be able to donate more than others. Others are going to be, here pretty consistently and, help with the likes and the views and the donos and whatnot. And congratulations on earning mod status all day. I have to go through a lot of the other mods from back in the day that, maybe aren't here as often and kind of shift a few people around. But again, I always recognize, and again, there's a few other people that are definitely in the running, for a spot, but I have to clear some room for some of the others from, that might have been a little bit older and whatnot. But again, congratulations on that. And again, you'll see the wrench, obviously there on your next comment. And if you have left the building already, then you'll obviously see it tomorrow. So appreciate you guys very, very much. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And again, this is going to be hopefully an electric series. And again, a beautiful win, 9-2 final there by the Seattle Mariners. Appreciate you guys, and I love you guys very much. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan. Okay, you're still in the building. I was hoping that you would see it before I ended up leaving, or you would see it tomorrow. So again, appreciate you. You've earned it. And again, there's certain types of responsibilities when you end up having that wrench. Trying to be here as often as possible, and obviously helping the channel grow, and just doing what you've been doing is exactly what needs to be done. So appreciate you. Mike, have a good night all day. Congrats. And everyone else in the building, appreciate you. Final score, Mariners 9, Athletics 2. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I am out. Tridents up, and go Mariners.